humanity waged war against monsters for decades. After endless battles, only a small number of creatures remained. The protagonist, Han Sung, held the title of Commander-in-Chief of the last defense forces of Earth. Every single day for him was a hellish battle with a horde of vile monsters, but he carried them out almost single-handedly. And then, when after the final purge, their main target was already right before their eyes, a magical portal suddenly appeared over the ruins of the world. A flash of light instantly sucked our protagonist into nowhere. Bound by glowing chains, the boy began to hear voices very close to him. Unknown cultists decided that before them stood the very hero from another world they had heard about. A creepy old man welcomed the commander-in-chief to their empire. The ruler explained without hesitation that they were asking him to defeat the Demon King and save their world. Han Sung, furious, tried to figure out where he was and what they were talking about. Without further ado, the emperor activated the Oath of Peace in MC's body, assuring him that it was completely harmless. The old man threw a decrepit sword at Han Sung's feet and repeated that he needed to tear the evil Demon King to pieces to save the new world. Almost in tears, the exhausted soldier agreed to fight again in the completely different world to which he had been summoned now as a hero from another world. Han Sung worked tirelessly on his physical skills. He conducted endless raids, each time finding a new, sophisticated way to cut down another creature. 10 years of toiling for the Empire had consumed his youth, but he had to make the decision to defeat their enemies. Even when all the missions were closed, the old man had no intention of letting him go, and the dog in the collar had no choice but to silently agree to everything. And so, after another raid, MC already believed that he would finally return home, when suddenly a stranger tightened glowing chains around his neck, to say goodbye to the hero forever. Bleeding, Han Sung swore that he would never forgive this humiliation and would make the bastards of the Empire pay for it. It was that night that one life closed its eyes, and another opened them. Seeing the faces of his new family, Han Sung suddenly remembered one of his parents. This was Duke Saxon, the greatest necromancer and black mage on the continent, and his new home became the Empire's capital of forbidden magic, home to the Black Tower. The rebirth stone in his body was successfully activated and became the only forbidden artifact capable of removing the leash. But Han Sung still couldn't believe that he had been reincarnated in the body of the son of one of the Empire's most elite noble families, whose body was entirely in the hands of fate. Delighted, the baby thinks he has been born with a proverbial golden spoon this time. He privately vows that when he grows and masters necromancy, he will wipe out every last member of the Empire who wronged him. Duke Saxon notices the baby's silence, and calls the nanny's attention to the fact the child is not crying. The nanny finds it odd that the boy breathes fine yet makes no sound and is asked to check him more closely. Inside, the reincarnated Han Sung thinks that as an adult soul, he does not cry easily. After examining him, the nanny declares his breathing stable and says there is nothing to worry about. Saxon comments that a tearless baby is rumored to be bad luck, but the nanny reassures him while hinting there is a way to make the child cry if desired. Cheerfully, she suggests smacking the baby's bottom until he cries and raises her hand to do so. Startled and furious at this indignity, the baby mentally unleashes a string of censored curses as the spanking begins. The adults remark on the baby boy's stubbornness, attributing it to inheriting his father's will. The woman confidently takes the crying baby, while an inner voice notes the parents are overreacting since the child is healthy. As the mother lifts her hand and gently pats the baby on her lap, the child reacts in surprise. Frustrated internal thoughts curse the situation. Resting calmly on his new mother's lap, the baby begins to relax. As her warm touch reaches his skin, narration notes a significant emotional moment for him. That gentle hand makes Han Sung suddenly remember something from his past. The memory is of his former life as a battle-hardened man fighting violently. He recalls tending to his own wounds and wonders when he last felt such warmth. He remembers sitting injured while others talked nearby, thinking about the last time he experienced kindness. Narration explains that his new mother's trembling, gentle hand expresses a love he has not known in years. Han Sung, who had not cried since becoming old enough to reason, finds tears welling up. Overcome with feeling in his infant body, he bursts into loud sobs. Years pass, and his parents, lying in bed, talk about how 8 years have gone by since Dale's birth. They discuss Dale's tireless habit of reading since age 4, believing he takes after his father. The father comments that their son seems especially interested in magic. The mother reminds Alan of his promise regarding Dale's magical education. In the study, Dale reads, while Alan clarifies the promise was not to teach the boy necromancy. The mother is relieved that he remembers this vow. Alan reassures her, teasing that the birthday gift he prepared for Dale will respect that promise. Late at night, a knock on their door interrupts them, and Alan wonders who is visiting. A panicked maid bursts in, breathlessly reporting that something is wrong with young Master Dale. Both parents react in shock to the alarming news. They rush to Dale's room, where they find their son collapsed amid swirling blue mana. Dale, surrounded by magical energy, weakly calls to his parents as they shout his name in fear. His mother grabs him, anxiously asking if he is hurt and what happened, while he insists he is fine. Alan senses the lingering mana in the air and begins to analyze the situation. He realizes with astonishment that his 8-year-old son is already able to release mana. Alan sternly questions Dale about whether he just released mana, while Dale internally panics that his early awakening will seem suspicious. Dale stalls for an answer, thinking he must respond quickly to avoid arousing further doubt. Alan's lips curl into a faint smile, shifting the mood. Instead of anger, Alan praises Dale, proudly patting his son's head. Alan regretfully states that he cannot personally teach Dale necromancy, leaving Dale worried about how he will gain power for revenge. Elena gently sends her son back to his room, saying the servants will clean up, and Dale cheerfully agrees. As Dale leaves, Alan calls to Elena, wanting to discuss something about their son. He tells her he has come up with a suitable birthday present for Dale. Shortly afterward, during Dale's birthday banquet, nobles gather and exchange pleasantries about the grand celebration. Guests chat about when the young master will appear and remark on how splendid the occasion is despite starting a bit late. Upstairs in the banquet hall, Dale sits alone, noting how noisy it is already. He reflects that all these people have come for his birthday and feels tired just thinking about it. Comparing this life to his past as a coldly treated hero, he finds being a pampered noble's son awkward. His thoughts drift back to the day he accidentally destroyed his desk with uncontrolled mana. Remembering how reminiscing about his former heroic life made his mana surge, he decides it would be wasteful not to use this body's talent for necromancy. Hiding behind a shelf, he wonders how to persuade his father, having overheard that a birthday gift is being prepared and thinking of asking for necromancy lessons. He judges that directly requesting necromancy would be difficult, just as his parents enter saying they kept him waiting. His mother approaches in a formal dress, wishing him a happy 8th birthday as she introduces a hooded guest. Dale asks who stands behind her, and she invites the cloaked figure to come greet him. The hooded person begins to lower her cowl. Narration introduces her as Sephia, an elf elder of the Blue Magic Tower and master of water magic, known as the Enlightened Demon. His mother declares that Sephia will be his teacher, and Sephia cheerfully says she looks forward to working with him. Elena wishes Dale a happy birthday, while he is stunned that an elder of the Blue Magic Tower will be his master. Realizing this means he will mainly study defensive and disruptive water magic, Dale notes that his mother truly wants to steer him away from dark magic. Sephia then asks to speak with Dale privately, and he respectfully agrees. Outside in the snowy landscape, Sephia explains that she has been instructed to teach him only water magic. Noting his disappointment, she observes that he must really want to learn something else. When he asks how she knows that, she states that of course he would be interested in his father's dark necromancy. Sephia explains that the Duke's marriage promise to Elena, known across the Empire, bars him from passing down those dark arts. A flashback shows Elena initially fearing the infamous Noir Duke when he courted her. To reassure her, the Duke vowed never to teach his dark magic to their child, a promise remembered by the witnesses at their white-clad wedding. Their wedding day is shown, with the Duke and Elena in pure white, symbolizing his renunciation of black-clad darkness. Sephia says that because of that vow, it will be difficult for Dale to learn dark magic right away, but she intends to persuade Elena over time. She asks if Dale will follow her guidance in the meantime. Dale hesitantly questions whether an elf like her finds black magic and necromancy distasteful, since elves value nature and life. Amused, Sephia laughs at the question instead of being offended. She counters by asking whether priests who revive the dying are not also defying nature, saying resurrection and necromancy look similar to her. Impressed by her open-mindedness, Dale thinks she is unlike other rigid elves and might actually be a good master. She decides to begin lessons immediately, explaining that his first goal is to complete his partially formed mana circle. He learns that finishing his first circle is perfect, since most spells he studied require at least that level. Following her instructions, he places his hand on his heart and focuses, submerging himself in the world's dense mana. Narration contrasts this mana-rich world with Earth, emphasizing that its energy is abundant. It explains that only ancient beings like dragons can handle raw mana directly. Others must process it first. Therefore, mages need a filter called a mana heart circle to safely handle mana. The teaching continues. He must gather the scattered mana fragments near his heart, assemble them into a circle, and rotate them steadily. Dale visualizes how the circle engraves a mana flow path into his heart, realizing everything is working exactly as Sephia described. Sephia advises him to gently rotate the mana around his heart, not to rush the process. She notes that forming a first circle usually takes a month, but before she finishes, Dale speaks up. He calmly says he has already done it, showing swirling mana as proof. Sephia stares in disbelief at what she has just heard. She realizes he formed a complete circle in mere minutes and wonders if this means something extraordinary. Watching Dale easily manipulate a large mass of mana, she questions whether he is a natural-born prodigy. Sephia asks if he can now release mana through that circle. Dale agrees to try and begins channeling blue mana outward. Narration notes that even releasing mana is normally hard for beginners, yet he does it with ease. Dale reflects that in his past life, limited battle-type spells were not enough to defeat Duke Saxon. This time, he intends things to be different. Having inherited the Noir Tower Master's talent, he believes this body can naturally absorb mana and maybe master multiple magic types. He focuses, drawing mana in, guiding it to his fingertips, and shaping it into a spell. He forges the energy into a sharp projectile meant to become a lethal weapon against the Empire. The mana crystallizes into a gleaming ice bolt. Sephia notes that mana usually collapses once outside the body, yet he has stabilized it into a solid ice bolt, though he himself worries its power may be low. Dale fires the spell toward a nearby tree, while Sephia watches. The bolt slams into the trunk with tremendous force. The impacted section explodes, shattering the tree in a burst of ice and splinters. Sephia is stunned as she sees the tree destroyed and debris flying everywhere. She assesses that the bolt pierced straight through with remarkable sharpness and solidity, far beyond what any 8-year-old should manage. Gazing at Dale in awe, she silently questions his true nature. Dale smiles innocently, while narration echoes her inner question of who this child really is. Kneeling by the blasted stump, Sephia examines the frozen damage in amazement. She internally revises her expectations, realizing the attack did more than move mana. It correctly used the ice element and absorbed ambient cold with expert precision. Dale, worried by her silence, asks if he has done something wrong. Sephia turns back with a faint smile, leaving her real thoughts unspoken. She reflects that the complexity of his spell's magic formula is far beyond what any innocent child could devise unconsciously. She breaks down the formula's elements of rotation, acceleration, and congestion embedded within the ice bolt. Recognizing that these are the golden ratio principles of military magic, she considers it unbelievable that he executed such a lethal spell without conscious design. Meanwhile, Dale fidgets nervously, still unsure how she will judge his performance. Sephia reassures him aloud that it is nothing, yet privately sympathizes with Lord Noir for feeling regretful about suppressing such a talent. Later, over tea with Alan, she shocks him by saying she cannot continue teaching Dale. Alan protests that if Dale reached the first circle in minutes, she should be eager to instruct him, and she begins explaining what happened. She reveals that the moment Dale formed his first circle, he used a flawless killing spell on the spot, startling Alan. Sephia elaborates that the spell employed the military magic formula in a perfect golden ratio, unbelievable for an 8-year-old. She concludes that Duke Noir's son is inherently gifted at killing. Alan repeats back that as a non-violent Blue Tower elder, she now feels unable to teach Dale. She clarifies that this is not the reason at all. On the contrary, she feels an even stronger desire to guide him personally onto the right path. Alan says that if she wants to guide him, there is no reason to refuse continuing as his teacher. She then mentions that Dale already shows signs of wanting to learn the dangerous noir magic his father created. Respectfully acknowledging Alan and Elena's love story and vow, Sephia nonetheless hints that such promises should not fully dictate Dale's future. She asserts firmly that parents cannot decide everything for a child, especially one with such exceptional talent. Outside the room, Dale presses his ear to the door, frustrated that he cannot hear what they are saying. He slumps down in the hall, assuming their conversation must be about him. He reflects that he did not expect his very first spell to be so powerful and remembers how surprised Sephia looked. Deciding he must control his power more carefully from now on, he sighs to himself. A voice calls out to young Lord Dale, startling him. Dale brightens as he recognizes the newcomer. A knight in armor, Helmet, greets him warmly, and Dale excitedly asks what he is doing there. Dale turns the question back, asking where Helmet has been all this time. Helmet laughs that he has been away protecting the ducal family, just as Dale runs forward and hugs him. Dale enthusiastically exclaims that Helmet must have been out defeating scary monsters. Perched on Helmet's arm, Dale casually remarks that he must have been busy in the dungeons. Dale's eyes narrow thoughtfully as he contemplates what those words imply. Narration shifts to the world's context, explaining that dungeon outbreaks and monster floods are grave threats to every territory. It recounts how since the Demon King's era, monsters attacking civilians have caused great harm, prompting knights to focus on clearing dungeons in the Demon King's former lands. They also eliminate monsters spilling out through dungeon breaks, with Saxon's duchy suffering much more severely than other regions. Dale reveals that the reason Saxon bears this burden is himself, the former otherworldly hero whose victory over the Demon King led to the Empire ordering the Duke to tame that territory. Looking annoyed, Dale dryly calls this political decision leftover dumping, in technical terms. He warns Helmet to take care of himself, and Helmet teases him for worrying while noting the boy looks healthy. Alan arrives, and Dale respectfully greets his father. Helmet formally greets Duke Saxon, who thanks him for his efforts in the recent dungeon raid. Elena appears with maids, surprised to find them all gathered, while Dale wonders what brings his mother here. She calls out to Dale affectionately. Thrilled, she hugs him and says she heard he reached the first circle, expressing how proud she is. Alan also congratulates Dale and invites him to state any wish he has. Dale hesitates, wondering if asking to learn necromancy would seem too calculating, and instead thinks about what a normal child might request. He blurts out that he wants a little sister, shocking his parents. Imagining their reactions, Dale and Helmet both inwardly resolve to do their best, while Helmet struggles not to laugh. Outside at night, someone tells the captain not to laugh as the city and towering castle stand under the moon. Later, Dale lies in bed, mentally cringing at how childish he had to act for that request. Feeling exhausted from using magic, he closes his eyes and drifts towards sleep. Suddenly, his eyes snap open in terror as something shocking intrudes on his consciousness. A sinister man from his past life grabs him from behind, greeting him mockingly as Hansung. The man taunts that people grow soft easily, implying Hansung has changed, as he cruelly yanks his head back. A tormentor mocks Hansung, claiming that living comfortably with loving parents has dulled his desire for revenge. The man warns Hansung that the Empire will relentlessly hunt him until every trace of him is erased. Dale suddenly gasps as mana bursts violently from his chest. Racked with pain as blue mana rages through his heart, Dale feels like it might explode. Observing the chaotic mana flooding his room, Dale wonders if this is the mana rampage he has heard about. Clutching his chest while being lifted by surging mana, Dale curses the Empire for not leaving him alone. Dale runs outside into the snowy night for fresh air, but realizes his condition is only worsening. Holding his chest and sweating, Dale notes in panic that the mana rampage is intensifying instead of calming down. As Dale struggles to breathe, a blue-haired elf woman appears behind him and comments that he seems to be in trouble. Recognizing her as his teacher Sephia, Dale hears her call him talented yet dangerous as she assesses his mana rampage. She places her glowing hand on his chest while he stands still, letting her intervene in the rampage. Sephia decides that if malice fully taints the boy's magic it will be irreversible, so she acts immediately. She concentrates deeply, unleashing powerful magic to suppress and purify the runaway mana in Dale. Dale looks at the calm mana in his hands and realizes in relief that the rampage has completely stopped. Sephia calls Dale by name, and he answers her, still catching his breath. She explains that magic reflects the caster's heart like a mirror, which is why the same spell differs from mage to mage. Sephia tells him that his innate magical talent lies in taking lives, making his gift extremely dangerous. She adds that for precisely this reason she feels fortunate to be the one teaching him, and hands him a grimoire. Dale receives the book and realizes it is a necromancy tome. Smiling gently, Sephia says that perhaps it is fate she will remain by his side from now on. She wishes Dale a happy birthday, leaving him surprised and touched. Overwhelmed, Dale hugs his teacher, and she affectionately remarks on how needy he is. A few days later on the northern plains, Sephia brings Dale outside for practice, where he spots rabbits in the snow. She confirms the target is rabbits. Sephia instructs Dale to recall hunting with his father, and use that memory while casting, and he agrees. The rabbit notices something as Dale begins his spell. Dale channels blue magic with determination, forming a powerful spell circle. He launches a huge spear of ice at the rabbit as Sephia watches from behind. The ice projectile strikes, exploding outward while Dale and Sephia stand at its center of force. Sephia silently notes that despite just killing a creature, Dale's hands remain perfectly steady. Addressing him, she begins another lecture, reminding him that even identical spells can manifest differently depending on the mage. She asks if Dale knows why that is, and he admits he does not. Sephia explains that magic mirrors the mind, materializing what lies in one's heart through mana and thus revealing the inner self. Dale listens quietly, unsure how to respond. She further says that spell names like Fire Wall are merely mental aids, and all towers teach magic in the same conceptual way. The narration contrasts towers, stating that the red magic tower pursues order through strength. It then explains that the blue magic tower pursues order through harmony, and that each tower's philosophy shapes its magic. Sephia elaborates that every tower's philosophy underlies its magic system, mentioning additional noir, white, and green towers. She looks at Dale with a soft smile after finishing her explanation. Seeing Dale's confusion, she decides the topic is still too advanced for him. The narration introduces basic necromancy as raising a corpse like a zombie. It clarifies that necromancy works by animating a dead body using mana strings as control threads. Dale focuses intensely, weaving visible purple strings of mana between his fingers. The narration specifies the key points on the corpse to connect the strings to, such as head, spine, and knees. Once Dale ties the mana threads, the rabbit corpse reanimates monstrously, and Sephia praises him. Sephia asks if he can immediately move on and control the next corpse, and Dale confidently says yes. Dale uses a spell called Frozen Armor to encase his undead rabbit in ice. His eyes glow as he invokes the defensive enchantment. A massive ice formation slams down, fully armoring the undead rabbit. Sephia observes the ice-covered rabbit, and remarks that Dale's execution and form of frozen armor are quite good. She proposes testing the creature's defense by attacking it herself. Dale gulps nervously as he prepares for the test. Sephia blasts the armored rabbit with an ice bolt, sending it flying. The armor holds, shattering outward but protecting the body, and the rabbit endures. Delighted, Dale exclaims that the defensive spell successfully blocked his master's attack. Sephia commends Dale on his excellent work, and he beams proudly. Noticing he wants to say more, she asks what he is wishing for. Dale formally requests that she also train him to better use water attribute magic. Sephia just smiles faintly in response. She bluntly refuses, surprising Dale. Sephia explains that what he demonstrated today was only the most basic water magic. She adds that, like all attributes, advanced water magic demands deep insight and higher understanding as it grows. She notes that for most novices even learning a single affinity is difficult. The narration defines a dual mage as someone capable of handling two elements at once. Sephia tells Dale that aiming to master two different attributes at his age is nearly impossible, and sounds overly ambitious. Dale, incredulous, questions her calling his goal mere ambition. He privately reflects on whether his desire for more power is really just ambition, imagining his own larger magical self. Frustrated, Dale reminds himself of all he has already shown and protests that she once promised to walk the path forward with him. Flustered, Sephia abruptly ends the day's lesson and dismisses him. That night in the study, Dale gathers stacks of books, determined to study alone. Straining under the load of tomes, he vows to prove himself so capable that Sephia will have no choice but to teach him. He overuses dark mana while training, collapsing in the library as purple energy flares around him. Later, someone calls Dale's name as he wakes up bleary-eyed from exhaustion. The next day Sephia comments that he looks sleep-deprived, and he admits he stayed up preparing something. As they walk outside, she warns him not to overexert himself, and he reassures her. Dale immediately begins casting a sophisticated necromancy formation with purple mana. The armored undead rabbit looms before them again, wreathed in dark energy. Seeing the advanced control of mana threads, Sephia acknowledges that he has already mastered this necromantic technique. The rabbit's frozen armor begins to crack ominously. Dale triggers a huge combined explosion of ice and dark energy from within the armored corpse. Sephia recognizes that Dale just produced an ice explosion, a high-level spell. The narration notes that the unleashed effect is not the end. As the undead rabbit continues channeling power, the rabbit focuses dark energy in its chest, preparing another devastating burst. It charges forward with the condensed energy, rushing to detonate. The corpse detonates in a massive ice and dark mana explosion, sending shards in all directions. Sephia hastily casts an advanced hexagonal shield and realizes the scale of Dale's attack. Her barrier blocks the storm of ice fragments and mana around her. When the barrage clears, she stands protected behind the shield, staring at Dale in stunned silence. Dale calmly explains that he combined corpse explosion with ice explosion, merging water and dark attributes into a single spell. Displaying water in one hand and dark mana in the other, he asks if this qualifies him as a dual mage. The ground around them is scarred and littered with ice shards, showing the destructive reach of his new technique. Sephia internally admits she has never seen an attack method like this before. She analyzes that the ice from frozen armor amplified the corpse explosion's area of effect and turned ice and bone fragments into deadly blades. Examining the shards on the snow, Sephia contemplates the lethality of what Dale created. She thinks that this kind of magic is designed purely for killing and resembles something forged by a lifelong battlefield veteran. Sephia wonders in alarm what sort of mental image underlies this child's magic. Dale looks back over his shoulder, his eye reflecting a chilling resolve. Later he happily greets his returning relative, Uncle Helmet, alongside Sephia. Helmet, arriving with armored knights, greets Dale and Sephia, and Dale asks if he has just returned from clearing a dungeon. Helmet explains that this time their group subdued a small band of monsters. He proudly says the Black Cavalry had to put in effort for that mission, and the narration names this elite unit. Another narration describes the Black Cavalry as aura-wielding lancers who are the strongest mounted force of the Saxon dukedom. It adds that their captain, Sir Helmet, leads them. The narration elevates Helmet further, revealing he is one of the 7 sword masters on the continent. Dale cheerfully reminds Helmet of his promise to teach him sword techniques, seeing it as a prime chance to learn from a renowned warrior. Helmet laughs and assures him he has not forgotten, while Dale excitedly says he will see him later. Mounting his horse, Helmet tells them not to stay out in the cold too long, and Dale wishes him a safe trip back. After Helmet departs, Sephia tells Dale they should return, and he agrees. Over tea, someone asks Sephia what she means, and she calmly replies that her earlier statement stands. She formally reports that young Master Dale has already mastered First Circle necromancy and water magic. Dale's father nervously points out that they originally asked her to teach only one specific discipline. Sephia confirms that the request was for water magic alone. She explains that as Dale's mentor she chose to teach him what he wished to learn and that he wanted more than just water magic. She adds that if Dale desires it, she is willing to continue that broader instruction. Dale's mother politely asks that Sephia keep teaching him water magic at least. Sephia agrees, promising to look after Dale from now on, and his parents gratefully accept. As she turns away, tension hangs in the room between her and his parents. Sephia formally apologizes to Lord Noir for having broken their original agreement. Elena, Dale's mother, gushes that their son is extraordinary and marvels that he became a dual mage at only 8. Dale's father admits that his son sometimes frightens him but says such power is fitting for their child. Gathering his courage, he confesses that he wants Dale to learn necromancy to gain the strength required of a lord and disciple. The narration shows Dale manipulating pieces on a chessboard with dark mana, implying his enormous potential. Dale's father continues that, as a parent, he wants his son to inherit his necromantic legacy. Overcome with guilt, he apologizes to Elena for pulling their child towards such a feared path. Elena notes that necromancy is widely despised as a magic of death, so public opinion remains poor. She says that is why she should oppose his plan, yet hesitates. Instead, she urges him to train Dale into a necromancer strong enough to ignore others' prejudice. She embraces him and gently asks for his agreement. He returns the hug and swears he will train their son to become the best necromancer possible. The narration states that a special necromancy training regimen for Dale begins, with his father immediately expressing disappointment in his current understanding. His father scolds him for having raised corpses without truly knowing what he was controlling. Dale defensively protests that he has only learned what his first master showed him. The scene shifts to the underground magic workshop of House Noir, where the narrator recounts being brought there after demonstrating his basic necromancy. Dale's father forbids him from relying on simple beginner spells while under his tutelage. He commands Dale to start by memorizing the bone and muscle structures of all creatures. Standing over towers of books, the father asks if Dale understands, and the boy reluctantly agrees. The narrator says he memorized every professional anatomical text his father gave him, equivalent to what doctors would study. After completing this grueling theory, his father finally allows him to advance to practical necromancy. Smiling, his father announces the start of real training, and Dale eagerly responds. During practice, Dale notices something new and alarming. He sees a goblin corpse laid out as his next subject, under his father's watchful gaze. His father remarks that Dale looks unsettled. He explains that an untrained warlock can barely make a swordmaster's body shamble, whereas a skilled necromancer can turn even a common soldier into a fearsome death knight. Presenting the goblin as a regular undead soldier, he challenges Dale to demonstrate how he will move it. Dale musters his mana and begins controlling the goblin corpse, struggling with the complexity. He strains with sweat as he pours focus into the task. Dale reflects that unlike a simple rabbit, a bipedal goblin requires far more mana threads to coordinate, and he worries he tied it too tightly. The stiffened goblin lurches under his control as the mana threads tug at its limbs. Working the strings, Dale thinks it feels like manipulation of an overly complicated puppet. He questions whether using post-mortem rigidity to harden its body was a mistake, since the stiff joints now hinder its movement. Dale strains to cast magic and anxiously wonders how to handle the current situation. His father places a hand on his shoulder and says that while hardening the corpse by hastening rigor mortis was clever. The father explains that this method also restricts the corpse's movement. He tells Dale to watch closely. The father unleashes powerful dark magic that engulfs the corpse. Dale watches in shock as the magic swirls around them. The corpse is violently reanimated and surges with purple power. The father begins altering the ribcage with magic, commenting on its original form. He explains that ribs normally protect internal organs. He adds that corpses no longer need such protection. The corpse's ribs transform into lethal blade-like protrusions. The father teaches that black magic requires understanding a target's structure and reshaping it to one's needs. Dale is stunned by this explanation. The father states that this principle is the basis of black magic. Dale addresses his father with new resolve. He asks to be taught the mindset of the Manhwa Tower. The father smiles faintly at Dale's request. When Dale asks about the truth, his father repeats the word thoughtfully. The father kneels and tells him that truth is always found within death. He says that therefore they must comprehend something important. The father explains they must grasp the weight of life in order to reach the truth. Dale recalls a burning battlefield where a knight begs for mercy. The pleading man calls the armored killer a hero and begs to be spared. The hero raises his sword despite the man's frantic pleas. Dale flashes back to a comrade being slain mid-prayer and someone crying his name. Returning to the present, Dale's father asks if he is alright. Noting Dale's pale expression, the father comments that he looks unwell while Dale stays silent. In his memory, the hero insists to his own father that he is fine after killing. Dale echoes that lie in his mind, insisting he is fine. Narration explains that as Dale's dark magic training advances, news spreads through the empire that Duke Saxon has taught his son forbidden arts. The Duke's broken vow against black magic causes a major uproar across the empire. The one who prompted that vow's breach, Dale, draws keen interest from nobles and powerful figures. Those influential people now fix their attention on the young Dale. Dale trains fiercely, striking with a wooden sword. Weeks later at the dukedom's training grounds, he spars intensely with a knight. Dale aggressively clashes swords with his armored instructor. The knight easily parries, shattering Dale's wooden blade. Dale presses the attack, swinging with determination. The knight counters with strong blows that test Dale's defenses. Dale braces himself and raises his sword to meet a heavy strike. He hurls himself into a powerful downward attack that slams into the ground near the knight. The surprised knight turns as something unexpected happens. The force of Dale's strike knocks the knight's wooden sword from his hand. Laughing, the knight praises Dale's effort while Dale pants, and Dale notes a real knight would not drop his sword. Dale accuses the knight of intentionally letting go of the weapon. The knight denies it, saying Dale's realistic combat techniques could have killed an ordinary person in one exchange. He compliments Dale's swordsmanship so highly that he laments Dale being a mage. The knight adds that mages usually have escort knights for protection anyway. He questions why Dale trains so hard when he need not, asking if there is a reason. The knight urges Dale not to push himself to the point of injury. Dale replies that he does have a reason. He says it would not suit a duke's son to rely only on guards or defensive spells. Internally, Dale thinks he cannot pass up learning swordsmanship directly from one of the continent's 7 sword masters, which amuses the knight. The knight heartily calls Dale's answer magnificent, and says he would have no regrets if he had a son like Dale, while Dale feels proud of the praise. Dale's mother appears, remarking on their high spirits, and Dale happily calls out to her. Dale asks why she came out in the cold, and she says she wanted to see how hard her son is training. She adds that she also has news, reminding him of the birthday present he requested. Dale tries to recall what present he had asked for. A memory shows him once innocently declaring that he wanted a little sister. Realizing this, Dale reacts in shocked disbelief. His mother, hand on her belly, tells him he will need to look after his younger sibling. Dale enthusiastically agrees to take good care of the baby. 10 months later, Dale lies by his newborn sister on the bed, captivated, while his parents and a servant look on fondly. Stroking the baby's cheek, he admits it still feels unreal that she is his sister. Dale gazes at her and thinks she is unbelievably cute. His mother asks if he wants to hold the baby, startling Dale. She encourages him not to be shy and hands the infant to him. Dale realizes holding her is easier than he feared. Holding his sister carefully, he is asked if she resembles him, and he quietly observes her. His mother notes that the baby cries when she holds her but seems happy when Dale does. Dale smiles gently at his contented sister in his arms. Dale asks the baby how she feels now while continuing to hold her. He tells his father that although she is light, she somehow feels very heavy to him. His father smiles and explains that what Dale senses is the weight of life. The father urges Dale never to forget this lesson. He then reminds Dale that it is time for his next lesson, saying Master Sifia is waiting. Outside in the snow, Sifia announces that today's lesson will be real combat training. Dale nervously asks if he should fight seriously, and Sifia tells him to use his full strength. He acknowledges her and begins forming a complex ice magic circle. Sifia powers up her own icy magic, eager to see how much Dale has improved. She launches a massive ice projectile while Dale prepares to defend himself. Sifia easily shatters his initial ice attack, calling his first strike too slow. She continues to break apart his ice spells midair. Holding one of the ice fragments, she chides the idea of a student going easy on his master. Dale steels himself under the snowy sky, ready to continue. Sifia suddenly orders him to quickly set up a barrier. Dale strains to erect a hexagonal shield as the next attack comes. A huge wave of ice slams into his barrier, shocking him. With his arm encased in ice armor, Dale thinks that without blocking it he would have been badly injured. Sifia praises him for managing to form ice armor in such a brief moment. Dale stands with shards falling from his frozen sleeve, catching his breath. Sifia calls his performance excellent, and urges him to attack again while he prepares another ice wall spell. Dale completes a towering ice wall around himself, invoking it aloud. Sifia is astonished as the immense wall rises before her. She notes in surprise that he cast such an ice wall in the middle of battle. Observing the structure, she realizes he has enhanced the mana framework to make the ice far denser and stronger. Touching the wall, she wonders why he is focusing on defense at this moment. She speculates that he might simply be buying time to recover from her previous attack. Then she senses something odd and looks around in confusion. Above her, Dale applies a frost explosion fragmentation spell to the reinforced wall. He calmly gives the final command to detonate it. The wall begins glowing intensely behind Sifia as the spell activates. Realizing too late what is happening, Sifia hears him identify the technique as a grenade. The ice wall erupts into multiple explosions that slam into Sifia. Dale watches the aftermath and is thrilled that his tactic worked. Narration explains that his incantation compressed and then detonated the already strengthened ice wall, effectively turning it into an ice grenade. Dale thinks to himself that this attack will be difficult for his master to evade. Seeing the smoke clear, he calls out uncertainly for his master. He is horrified to see what appears to be Sifia frozen and shattered by the blast. A second intact Sifia cheerfully appears beside the frozen figure and asks if he called her. She admits he startled her, while Dale realizes the broken body must have been an illusion. Sifia chuckles and acknowledges that Dale used quite an impressive technique. She says she never imagined a first circle mage could actually wound an elder of the magic tower, indicating her bleeding cheek. Dale apologizes, saying he never intended to hurt her. She assures him she knows and even says she is grateful for the wound. Sifia explains that his using full strength against her shows he trusts her deeply, which makes her proud as his master. She says that as his instructor, nothing makes her happier and calls him an excellent student. When she asks how he devised such a spell formula, Dale credits her teachings. Sifia smiles silently, moved by his words. Later, she appears before Duke Saxon with a bandage on her cheek as Dale calls her name. The Duke questions her about the wound, and she explains she received it while training Dale because his formula was exceptionally sharp. The Duke admits he is greatly indebted to Sifia for what she does for his son. She replies that teaching someone so talented is her pleasure, and the Duke asks if he may make another request. Sifia invites him to state the request. He says reports of orcs entering their territory have arrived but that a small cavalry force could handle them easily. However, he declares that he plans to send Dale into this battle, shocking Sifia. She protests that young Master Dale is not ready. The Duke answers that Dale will not be put on the front lines. He continues that, regardless, defending the territory is House Saxon's duty. He insists that as the Duke's heir Dale must understand this responsibility, and that his son cannot be exempt. Sifia nervously asks what he wants her to do. The Duke says he plans to entrust Dale with his own artifact. He asks Sifia to guide Dale until he learns to control the artifact's power. Narration explains that an artifact is a powerful, willful object that demands mana or even the user's life as payment. It further explains that the stronger an artifact is, the more dangerous and uncontrollable it becomes, sometimes even killing its user. The narration notes that House Saxon has long mastered handling such powers as Dale, his father, and Sifia walk toward the family's artifact vault. Standing there, the Duke tells Dale that as his heir he must also prepare for the coming battle. Dale reacts with excited disbelief at the prospect of real battle, thinking eagerly that it is finally happening. His father confirms that Dale will join the force tasked with exterminating the orc horde. The Duke then says that before that, there is something they must do. He explains in the vault that Dale must first learn to control their family's dark power. Dale looks around in awe at the artifacts. The Duke shows him the Demon King artifacts their house guards, relics taken when their ancestors conquered the Demon King's domain. He warns Dale never to compare these relics to ordinary artifacts, and Dale senses the intense mana they emit. The Duke affirms that each contains immense, dangerous power, and orders Dale not to touch anything until he can control such strength. Moments later, he and Sifia realize Dale has vanished and call his name. The Duke wonders aloud where the boy has gone as Dale slips away toward the artifacts. A short time earlier, Dale had separated from them, thinking he needed to find an artifact that truly suits him. A dark shield-like artifact speaks to Dale, claiming it can sense his desire for revenge and the hatred in his heart. Other malevolent artifacts whisper temptations, urging Dale to choose and wear them so they can kill his enemies together and reach new heights. Dale realizes that these dark artifacts are resonating directly with his lingering resentment. Dale decides his current power is insufficient and resolves to obtain something much stronger. While searching the vault, Dale notices a mysterious cloak has appeared beside him. Examining it, Dale realizes the garment is the legendary Shadow Cloak. The narration explains that in the hero's era Duke Berda used this artifact to manifest shadows as deadly foes. Excited, Dale immediately puts on the Shadow Cloak to test it. His father and Sifia arrive, alarmed, as Dale stands wearing the cloak. Dark energy from the cloak suddenly engulfs Dale, startling everyone. Dale finds himself in a dark inner realm where the cloak's shadow creature repeatedly cries out that it is hungry. He realizes the entity is no ordinary shadow. The text recounts how the previous wielder commanded storms of living darkness with this cloak. Dale understands that to control it he must force the shadow creature to completely submit. The shadow being resists fiercely, looming over him with violent power. Dale reacts tensely, sweat beading as he confronts the creature. Outside, his father and Sifia watch a massive swirling sphere of shadow that has formed around him. Sifia worries about how long it has been, and his father warns that Dale could lose his mind and be devoured. Alarmed, Sifia suggests intervention, and his father prepares to forcibly extract Dale. Before they act, the storm of shadow suddenly calms, surprising them. The vortex dissipates, revealing Dale standing safely within the remaining shadows. Dale smiles and confirms to his father that he is alright, having subdued the cloak. Sifia rushes over anxiously, but Dale assures his master that he is fine. She admits her concern while Dale brushes it off as only a minor sting, and she wonders how he emerged unscathed. She recalls how even powerful adults struggled against this artifact and cannot fathom how a child endured it. Dale then shyly tells his father he has a question. He asks if he can also try on the other artifacts in the vault. His father and Sifia are stunned speechless by his request. His father relents and lets him explore, and Dale happily spends day and night testing the Saxon family artifacts. A few days later at the training grounds, a knight notices Dale wearing the Shadow Cloak and asks if it is really that artifact. Dale casually confirms that he is indeed wearing the Shadow Cloak. The knight cautions that it is notoriously hard to control, but Dale says he only feels a slight prickling. The knight finds this fascinating and muses that the cloak might have been lonely. Dale explains that the moment the shadow saw him it clung to him. He suggests the creature might simply want to be his friend, prompting amused disbelief from the knight. The knight laughs that Dale is too kind-hearted, while the shadow playfully nips at Dale's leg. Dale thanks Helmet for his words as he walks with the cloak's shadow teeth snapping underfoot. Remembering something, Dale tells Helmet he has a favor to ask. He requests a serious sparring match to use as combat practice. Delighted, Helmet draws his sword with vigor and promises to give Dale a proper match. Dale evaluates that dueling one of the continent's 7 sword masters is daunting, noting Helmet's overwhelming aura. Helmet tells him not to fear and promises to fight using only basic swordsmanship without aura. Dale interprets this as Helmet planning to go easy on him and steels himself. He thinks that knights should fight earnestly and determines that his real objective is to train with the Shadow Cloak. Dale prepares, intending to use the duel mainly to practice manipulating the cloak's shadows. He reflects that the strength of weapons he can form from its shadow creatures will decide the cloak's true value, making this battle a crucial test. Dale unleashes an attack named Shadow Blade Rush, sending a wave of shadow blades toward Helmet. Helmet counters the oncoming shadow strike with a powerful sword swing. He cleaves through the attack with sheer physical strength, astonishing Dale. Dale marvels that Helmet shattered the technique by strength alone and finds it incredible. Pleased, Helmet laughs and praises Dale, eager to continue the bout. He charges again, announcing he is coming at Dale in earnest. Dale braces himself as Helmet's sword slash closes in. Dale uses the cloak to expand shadows and evade, forcing Helmet to leap and adjust mid-attack. Dark spikes erupt around Helmet, prompting his shocked reaction. Recovering, Helmet calls the surprise maneuver fascinating. Dale follows up by driving shadow blades at him with determined focus. Helmet answers with a massive overhead slash that tears through Dale's shadows. Dale strains to block the powerful blow with condensed shadow. Their clash tears open the ground, creating a deep rift as energy explodes around them. Helmet is stunned that Dale blocked a strike strong enough to break normal swords. Dale concludes that this shows the overwhelming difference between ordinary weapons and a top-tier artifact. Fired up, Helmet suggests they exchange 10 more rounds as he presses the assault. Watching knights whisper in disbelief, realizing none of them have ever lasted beyond 2 exchanges with Captain Helmet, and sensing a huge gap between themselves and Dale. Dale notices their uneasy reactions and wonders about it. A few days later on deployment day, Dale's mother meets him under the moonlight and says she will speak to his father again about this mission. She insists she cannot bear to send him to such a dangerous place. But Dale comforts her by reminding her that his father and Helmet will accompany him. She still frets about what might happen if he is injured. Dale tells her he must grow strong enough to shoulder the dukedom someday. He adds that he needs the strength to protect her, his father, and baby Lisa, so this experience is necessary. Looking up at her, he begs to be allowed to become strong enough to protect his family. Touched, his mother finally agrees. She sends him off warmly, telling him to go, and he prepares to depart with his horse. Mounted, Dale reassures her that he will return soon. At dawn at the temporary base, the Saxon forces assemble on horseback and report readiness to the Duke, who approves. The Duke instructs Dale to give the order to march in his place, surprising the boy. He explains that the famed Black Cavalry will one day be Dale's to command. The Duke emphasizes that these knights are Dale's subordinates, not his own. The narration underlines that the knights belong to Dale, not to Hansung, his reincarnated self. Dale reflects that this will be his first battle as their leader, and resolves that the outcome must be different from his previous life. Taking position at the front, Dale declares that the time for action has come. He gives his first command, ordering the proud swords of House Saxon to march forward. The knights enthusiastically acknowledge the young master, and begin moving to their positions. The cavalry's hosts thunder as they charge across the snowy terrain. Dale leads 250 cavalrymen into the operation. The narration adds that the elite Winter Warden's Ranger unit from the White Mountains will also participate. Their objective is to eliminate an orc force roughly 1,000 strong. The Duke explains that the orcs have crossed the mountains and are following the Saxon River. The plan is to cross downstream first and ambush them. He notes that there is only one way for 250 men to cross such a deep river quickly. Cepheus steps forward and offers to create a bridge of ice. Dale happily greets her, thinking about how she came despite normally advocating nonviolence and harmony. Cepheus casts a tremendous spell that freezes a wide, solid bridge across the river. She finishes the spell and tells them the army can now cross. She wishes the Duke victory, and he expresses his gratitude for her help. Dale tells his master he is heading out with the troops. Cepheus silently watches him ride away over the ice bridge. Smiling faintly, she comments to herself that the feeling is strange. She reflects that it is unusual for a student to make his master worry so much as she watches Dale disappear into the distance. Shortly after, the scene shifts to the temporary orc base nestled in a rocky hollow. Hidden Winter Wardens loose flaming arrows as the ambush begins. A volley of fire-tipped arrows rains down toward the camp. The arrows explode among the orc tents, setting everything ablaze and causing chaos. Many orcs fall to the initial strike, while a furious orc leader rises amidst the flames. Helmet shouts orders to the cavalry battalions to prepare for their next move. He commands them to form a wedge formation and charge, and the mounted knights surge forward with lances lowered. Watching from above, Helmet proudly asks Dale what he thinks of the charge as his father observes. Dale analytically calculates their speed and the massive impact force produced by armored riders moving at that pace. He considers how the long lances, empowered by aura, form the devastating Kull Lance formation that even orcs cannot withstand. Dale observes that the battle is entirely one-sided, and his father affirms that this overwhelming might is the pride of their cavalry. Helmet cautions Dale not to relax yet, implying the real danger is not over. Orcs reorganize behind heavy shields, and one growls that this fight has only just begun. The cavalry slam into the shield wall, clashing with the braced orcs. Helmet concludes that, while the ambush was effective, it did not wipe out the enemy, so they will fall back, regroup, and finish them with repeated charges. A signal flare is launched, and the order goes out for all units to retreat. The cavalry pull back through the burning camp, hooves kicking up embers and ash. Confused orcs watch as the knights withdraw, unsure of the humans' intentions. Their leaders snarl angrily as they prepare to respond. One knight rides near the orc line, ready to cover the retreat. The orcs hurl spears toward the withdrawing riders. A spear strikes a knight, knocking him from his horse and badly injuring him. From a cliff above, Dale sees the fallen knight lying in the arena with enemies nearby and gasps. He comments that the situation is unfortunate, aware of the danger the knight faces. Hearing Helmet's report that one knight is down, Dale wonders if they already deemed the man beyond saving. The narration notes that a proud sword of House Saxon now lies exposed before the enemy as an orc closes in. Dale turns to his father and Helmet, demanding to know why they are merely watching. The two adults stay silent, weighing their options and the risk. Dale calculates that if he rides down normally it will be too late to save the knight from the charging orc. He reasons that, at this distance, he must pierce an orc's thick hide with a single, decisive shot. Dale decides to modify his ice bolt spell, adding precise sniping and ballistic formulas to stabilize its trajectory. He finalizes a specialized ice bolt configuration modeled after a powerful magnum round. Channeling the new formula, he aims with intense focus, magic circles spinning before him. Below, the orc closes in on the wounded knight as time runs out. Dale fires, and a massive beam of ice shoots straight down, impaling the orc from above. Watching from afar, his father remarks in astonishment that Dale hit accurately from such a long distance. Dale then spurs his horse toward the battlefield, ignoring Helmet's shouted question about where he is going. The Duke stops Helmet from interfering, telling him to let Dale act. Helmet, surprised, looks to the Duke, who calmly trusts his son. Another knight marvels that someone so young has already created his own destructive magic, concluding that Dale's inner magical world is nearly complete. Dale reaches the ground with determined eyes as he readies to intervene directly. He sees a massive orc leader advancing, while the remaining orcs regroup behind him. Dale notes that he now faces two issues at once. The narration lists the first problem as his body freezing in panic when he fell earlier, showing his lingering fear. The second problem is that his original spell formula is too complex for real combat, prompting him to think about simplifying magic like algebraic expressions. He considers naming the revised spell something like Ice 98 Magnum as he charges toward the enemy and the down knight. Dale wonders if the new name is still too long but decides it is acceptable for now. Empowered by his resolve, he finalizes the technique and calls it Ice Bullet. Meanwhile, the wounded knight panics as another orc charges him. Dale's Ice Bullet blasts through the orc's head in a straight beam, saving the knight at the last moment. The astonished knight looks at the slain orc and asks why Dale would risk himself for someone like him. Dale dismounts and steps toward him, closing the distance. Standing before the kneeling knight, Dale tells him not to worry. He declares that House Saxon never abandons a loyal sword, reaffirming his commitment to his subordinates. The knight, moved, struggles to rise while more orcs pursue, calling out gratefully to young Master Dale. Orc warriors roar and charge forward. Dale readies a glowing magic spell with determined focus. He unleashes the Shadow Blade skill, sending dark slashes toward the enemy orcs. The shadow attack smashes into the orcs, shattering weapons and bodies. Dale smiles confidently, pleased with his overwhelming power. The orc leader orders his minions to devour their foes. Dale's spell explodes among the orcs, leaving blood and darkness splattered. Shadow blades decapitate the orc leader in a swift, brutal strike. The remaining orc hesitates, hearing the sounds of his comrade being eaten. Dale stands beside a skeleton consumed by shadows, terrifying the last orc. Dale casually asks the stunned orc why it is still alive. He ends the fight with an Ice Bullet spell. Dale tells the injured knight Dale rescued that the battle is over, while the knight admits his legs cannot move. Dale awkwardly reacts to the knight's paralysis. Carrying the knight bridal style, Dale remarks that they survived. Outside the cave, Dale entrusts the remaining cleanup to his uncle Helmet and their cavalry. Helmet happily orders the cavalry battalions to charge. The knights ride out, shouting for House Saxon and for young Master Dale. Soon after at Saxon base, soldiers report to Dale that the orc extermination is complete. The Duke summons Dale and sternly asks why he rushed into enemy lines alone. He presses Dale on why he would act so recklessly. Nervous, Dale internally wonders why he is being scolded. The Duke orders Dale to explain his rash charge, and Dale respectfully agrees. Dale reminds his father that he said Dale would one day lead House Saxon's knights. Dale claims he only did what was expected of someone with that future title. The Duke dismisses this as weak reasoning, and Dale wonders why his knight-loving father is being so harsh. Dale pointedly asks why his father let his own knight die instead of saving him. The Duke explains that their northern territory constantly faces monsters, and frontline knights draw their swords without expecting rescue. Dale says he still hoped his father would save such a loyal knight, just as Dale tried. The Duke rebukes him for making warriors on the battlefield believe someone else will rescue them. He asks Dale how many knights with that mindset managed to survive. He presses the point, questioning how such dependent knights could live long. The Duke explains that Saxon knights must sharpen themselves against constant threats, and only when they truly reach their limit will he personally intervene. Dale concedes inwardly that his father's logic is irrefutable, and something he even knew in his previous life, yet had forgotten. Surprised when his father places a hand on his shoulder, Dale pauses. The Duke praises Dale's will and tells him never to lose that spirit, which Dale accepts. Later, Dale shields his eyes from the sunlight as the tense talk ends. His father opens the tent flap, suggesting they return to the castle. News of the young ducal heir who charged into orcs to save a knight quickly spreads as popular gossip across the empire. Bards exaggerate the tale into him single-handedly killing 1,000 orcs, and the story spreads like wildfire. Though Dale finds the rumors embarrassing, the incident energizes the entire duchy. A few days later at the training grounds, knights excitedly greet young Master Dale with great respect. Flustered, Dale tells them such formality is unnecessary. Helmet urges Dale to stand proudly as their young master. Helmet rallies the knights to become even stronger for Dale's future, and they answer enthusiastically. Watching their zeal, Dale thinks about how passionate they are as a maid calls to him. The maid informs Dale and Helmet that guests from House Orhart have arrived. Helmet thanks the maid Eve and asks Dale if they should go meet the guests. Dale thinks to himself that a special visitor is coming. The narrative introduces Marshal House Orhart and its former head Bardel, the Divine Sword, a famed noble of the fallen Teutonia kingdom. It recounts how the Empire's unification war destroyed both the kingdom and the Divine Sword, along with House Orhart. Dale notes Helmet's expression change, guessing he remembers the Divine Sword who led him into knighthood. Dale worries that this meeting might become uncomfortable. In the throne room, Dale greets his parents, who note he has been training again. A servant announces the guest's arrival, and Dale's father instructs him and Helmet to escort them respectfully. Dale observes the approaching Vanessa Orhart and her determined daughter, impressed that the girl came without attendants. Vanessa formally greets Duke Saxon on behalf of House Orhart, and the Duke welcomes her. Vanessa steps aside, preparing to introduce her daughter. She presents her daughter Charlotte Orhart, who looks tense and calls to her mother. Dale anxiously wonders what Charlotte is trying to say. Charlotte angrily questions why her mother bows to these nobles, shocking Vanessa. The Duke tries to smooth things over, saying Vanessa has endured much to come here. He asks Dale to escort Lady Charlotte around the castle for a while, and Dale agrees. Dale politely reaches out his hand to Charlotte to begin the tour. Startled, Charlotte begins to shout at him not to come closer. She recoils and yells at him not to touch her. Dale is confused by her extreme reaction. Dale's parents and baby sibling look on in alarm at the outburst. Charlotte pulls back, shaken by her own response. Vanessa calls her shameless for insulting imperial nobles and orders her to apologize to Dale. Charlotte clicks her tongue angrily and turns away from them. She runs out of the hall, with someone calling after her to wait. Vanessa returns alone and apologizes to the ducal couple, explaining that recent events have left Charlotte emotionally unstable. The Duchess asks what has happened to the girl. Vanessa begins her story, explaining that Count Brandenburg, the new imperial overseer, was recently assigned to their territory. She describes him as a famed holy knight of the empire, also reviled as the Pig King for his behavior. Rumors say this man tries to sire a gifted heir by forcing himself on any skilled swordsman, regardless of their will. Vanessa reveals he even targeted her underage daughter for this purpose. A memory shows his predatory hand reaching for young Charlotte, who resisted with her sword. Vanessa says Charlotte barely escaped his grasp, but the terror of the incident remains. Vanessa declares she wants to protect her daughter. As a fallen noble with little power, she begs the Duke to accept Charlotte as a maid of House Saxon. She hopes this will keep Brandenburg from ever touching Charlotte again. Later at the training grounds, Charlotte broods alone while Dale approaches her. She snaps that she does not care where she is going, while Dale wonders why she chose the training grounds. Dale asks if her hand is all right after she struck his earlier, assuring her that he is fine. Charlotte mutters that it is good, while Dale notes she must still be upset and is just a child underneath. Charlotte activates her aura and prepares to fight seriously. She points her sword at Dale and demands a match. She calls Dale of House Saxon to draw his sword. Dale is baffled, thinking she is acting entirely on her own whims. Facing him in the snow yard, Charlotte again orders him to fight her. Dale asks for a reason, and she says she has heard many rumors about him. She cites the story of the prodigy who slaughtered 1,000 orcs to save a single knight, which Dale inwardly cringes at. Charlotte vows to defeat the supposedly unmatched Dale and prove she is stronger. She then declares she will protect her house from Brandenburg. She names her true target as Count Brandenburg, the holy swordsman. Dale seethes inside, remembering Brandenburg as the imperial dog who betrayed him in his previous life. Dale thinks that since they share the same enemy, Charlotte could be a valuable ally, but first he must show her reality. He calmly walks to the practice swords while Charlotte watches in confusion. Drawing a wooden sword, Dale tells her she is still just a child who knows nothing. He invites her to attack with everything she has. Charlotte answers that she already intended to go all out. She unleashes a powerful green aura slash at him. Dale blocks her attack, clashing swords head-on. Their blades continue to collide as her aura surges while he holds firm. Charlotte attacks in a flurry, aura blazing as she tries to overpower him. Dale steadily deflects her rapid strikes, matching her speed. Dale analyzes that she is using precise counters and even a faint aura to handle a rapier too heavy for her. He compares aura to a mage's mana, watching her generate power through her heart's circle as she charges again. He notes that knights accumulate aura to surpass human limits, which she is starting to do. Watching her relentless assault, Dale concludes that Charlotte is a knight to her very core. Charlotte gathers aura into her sword once more, refusing to back down. She leaps in with another empowered thrust at Dale. The arena fills with arcs of light as she keeps pressing him. Confident, Charlotte thinks she now has the upper hand in the fight. A flashback shows that Charlotte grew up without her father, hearing only stories about him from her mother. Her mother nightly recounted tales of the divine sword to the young Charlotte. She was told she must protect their house in his stead as the proud daughter of the divine sword, and trained hard. Even as their kingdom and house collapsed, Charlotte never stopped honing her sword. Now she wonders in frustration why all that effort is stopped so easily by this boy. Dale continues cutting through her attacks, and she senses something is fundamentally wrong. She charges again in desperation. She roars and brings her sword down, but Dale calmly meets the blow. Dale responds with a clean, powerful strike of his own. The force of his counter knocks Charlotte back and disarms her. She screams her identity as the divine sword's daughter as their swords cross. Yet her rapier ends up embedded in the ground while she collapses, asking why she cannot win. Dale answers that it is because she is not the divine sword himself. He tells her that her pride as the divine sword's daughter is not wrong. But he adds that in her current state she cannot protect her house from Brandenburg, whose sword is far stronger than Dale's is now. Charlotte, shaken, asks what she should do. Turning away, Dale declares that he, Dale of House Saxon, swears on his family name to be House Orhart's protector. Charlotte is stunned to tears by his pledge. Dale promises that until she can defeat Brandenburg herself, he and House Saxon will serve as her shield. When she asks why he would do this, he says it is because her sword is worthy. He then asks her to swear to become a sword for him and for House Saxon. Smiling through tears, Charlotte accepts, saying she could never refuse such an offer. Kneeling, she formally swears on her honor as a knight to Dale and House Saxon. Dale reflects that, though childish, their exchange carried the weight of a true vow. The narration affirms that the resolve behind their promise is strong enough to be called a solemn oath. Later that day, Dale reports in the Duke's office that, at Vanessa Orhart's request, Charlotte has become a maid of House Saxon. The Duke notes how readily Vanessa accepted and asks what happened between Dale and Charlotte. Dale simply says that they made a promise. He states that, in House Saxon's name, he vowed to protect House Orhart, which surprises his father. The Duke asks if he used the family name out of pity, and Dale firmly denies it. The Duke then asks what Dale hopes to gain, observing that Charlotte, as the divine sword's heir, has exceptional talent. Dale answers that they forged a new oath together, hinting this is what he seeks. The Duke concludes that what Dale desires is a new divine sword to wield for the duchy's sake. Pleased, the Duke accepts Dale's decision with a satisfied smile. An unseen schemer is pleased that the last heir of the divine sword is now in their domain, seeing it as a strike against Brandenburg. In old Teutonia's capital Malberg, someone inside a castle curses in anger. A glass shatters and liquid spills, showing someone's rising rage. A nobleman explodes at a subordinate for acting too soon, who apologizes fearfully. The enraged noble slams his desk, berating his men for failing to capture a single girl. The subordinate explains their assassins were killed before reaching House Saxon, likely by Charlotte Orhart herself. The noble seethes in frustrated silence. Calling his people useless, he walks toward a glowing sword, sighing. Touching the sheathed holy sword, he nostalgically recalls his glorious past. Remembering battlefield days, he fondly addresses the weapon as Holy Sword Durandal. Obsessively caressing the blade, he vows to find the perfect heir for it and begs it to wait. He orders his agent to contact the Thieves' Guild and send men into the Duke's lands, startling the listener. He commands that any price be paid to capture Charlotte, the girl he despises. A week after swearing servitude, Charlotte adapts to the ducal house, undergoing heavy maid training and studying unfamiliar customs. She also spars daily with Dale, and their instructor asks if they are ready. Dale confidently agrees, sword in hand. Charlotte answers curtly, taking her stance with a rapier. Their knight instructor signals the start of the match. At his shout to begin, Dale and Charlotte clash fiercely with real killing intent. Dale smoothly deflects her attacks, moving with practiced ease. Charlotte counters with determined strikes, refusing to yield. Dale unleashes a flurry of rapid sword blows. Charlotte matches him, parrying and attacking with equal ferocity. Their instructor watches, momentarily speechless at the intensity of their duel. He marvels that this seems far beyond a children's bout, though they still fall short of knights. Observing their exchange, he notes that while not knight level, their speed and intent to kill are remarkable. Dale darts forward, pressing the attack. He uses his cloak to obscure Charlotte's vision and close distance. Charlotte realizes too late that he has gotten inside her guard. The instructor intercepts Dale's finishing thrust, praises Charlotte's effort, and ends the bout. Charlotte refuses empty praise and asks Helmut what she is lacking. Helmut asks if she knows the essence of rapier use, and she answers that it is thrusting. He corrects her, saying the real essence is in footwork and the legs. He explains that while Dale dodged and advanced, she should have widened the distance instead of letting him in. He further instructs that overextending the arm with a rapier makes the blade tremble and reduces precision. Concluding she must rebuild her basics from scratch, he shocks Charlotte with the severity of his assessment. He tells her that her posture and footwork are crude due to never having a proper teacher, and that he will correct her strange thrusting stance. Charlotte erupts in embarrassed protest at the wording while Dale laughs and Helmut roars with amusement. Helmut admits he was teasing because she looked cute, while Dale privately resolves to train harder since under a sore master like Helmut she may soon catch up. A narrator explains that forming mana circles normally takes decades. One must sense mana in the heart, stabilize its flow, then engrave it as a ring. Dale's elven teacher is shocked that he has already completed his second circle, which he calmly confirms. The narration defines mana circle strength in RPM. Most first circle mages rotate around 300 revolutions per minute. Dale notes that his first circle spins at 2,000 revolutions per minute and his second at 400, meaning he already qualifies to open a third circle. Having reached the second circle, he decides to run an experiment. He chooses to enhance his existing ice bullet spell. He plans to reinforce its molecular bonds for mass and hardness, then fire it through a large barrel construct to increase spin and velocity. He targets a tree and prepares the new spell variation called an armor-piercing ice bullet. The shot launches with explosive force, tearing through the snowfield. The massive icicle projectile drills devastatingly through the target. Dale stares at the giant hole left behind, wondering when the spell became so easy to cast and realizing how much stronger an extra circle makes him. His master praises how quickly he learns. Dale modestly credits her teaching, leaving her quietly moved. She reflects that from saving a knight from orcs to rescuing Charlotte, he always uses his strength for just causes. Though his power sometimes frightens her, it also makes her trust him deeply. She hugs him affectionately, calling him her proud student. Blushing in her arms, Dale internally complains that she is far too physically affectionate, finding it awkward. Later that dawn in the ducal courtyard, Dale thinks back on how much she startled him. He wonders if she still sees him as just a child but brushes it off, deciding to focus on training. Resolving to train, he casts the spell Wall of Ice. A towering barrier of ice erupts before him. He then shatters and manipulates the ice wall with magic. From the fragments he forms a new ice bullet variation resembling 12-gauge buckshot. The frozen pellets burst outward in multiple directions. The projectiles smash into the ice surface, scattering with great force. Dale tests them against a hard surface, observing their impacts and control. Satisfied, he plans to next adapt the spell into a slug-type round. As he finishes training, someone calls his name, drawing his attention. Charlotte appears in the snowy woods, realizing this is where he has been practicing. Dale admits he trains here too, while she says she has been drilling the footwork Helmut taught her. He notes she seems to truly enjoy learning swordsmanship, and she bashfully agrees. She tries to bring up what happened before, hesitating. Flustered, Charlotte apologizes for how she previously acted toward him, now addressing him more formally. Dale calmly states that she really has been quite rude, shocking her. Then he smiles and says he will forgive her this time. Delighted, Charlotte asks if he is serious, and he adds that she should stop being so formal with him, which she happily agrees to. Walking together among the snowy trees, Dale remarks that he really likes the weather here. He explains the cold lets him swing his sword late into the night without overheating. Charlotte quietly acknowledges his feeling. She thinks to herself that it makes her happy someone else enjoys the winter the same way she does. As they talk under the tree, she muses that time is passing quickly. Watching from a window, Dale's parents comment that their son is already at that age and that the two children suit each other well. His mother decides they should keep an eye on the budding relationship. She resolves that as his mother she must guide her son so he can follow his heart. Sometime later at the dukedom's outskirts, Dale accompanies his mother as she distributes bread and aid in the slums. Dale narrates that his mother regularly provides food and work to the poor crowded in these streets. He adds that he and Charlotte have begun helping her this year, when suddenly Charlotte notices something and dashes off. A frightened street boy grabs her, begging for help. The boy stammers that his mother is in danger. He desperately repeats his plea for help. Dale, suspicious of the situation and the route, notes internally that something feels very off. As they run through twisting alleys far from their escort knights, Dale analyzes that the boy's request specifically targeting Charlotte is suspicious. Sprinting after them, he spots a hooded lookout on a rooftop. Recognizing the man as a Thieves' Guild agent likely sent by the Holy Swordsman, Dale confirms that Charlotte is the target and notes how blatant the setup is. The boy stops before a building, saying he will bring his mother out, and Charlotte agrees while Dale watches warily. Instead, footsteps sound and unknown men approach, cutting them off. Several cloak thieves surround the two nobles, mock concerned about children in such a dangerous place. Their leader says they only want the little lady beside Dale and suggests he leave quietly. He warns that if Dale resists he may be hurt. Dale responds by solemnly swearing, as Dale of Saxon, to protect the daughter of Orhart. Standing beside Charlotte, he declares he will shield her from these thugs. The leader sarcastically praises his noble chivalry. He adds that Dale should have considered the timing and circumstances before acting bravely. Deciding the boy must learn pain, he orders his men to attack. Charlotte whispers that she left her sword behind, but Dale calmly tells her not to be afraid. Dale views the ambush as a perfect chance to test his new shadow cloak technique while claiming self-defense. The thieves leap down toward them from the rooftops. As they charge, strange wind-like purple energy swirls around Dale. Covered in that shadowy aura, he moves effortlessly while the assassins close in. Their leader panics and shouts for his men to dodge. Dale notes that the leader realized the danger quickly, confirming him as a high-rank thief. Shadow tendrils erupt around Dale and Charlotte, deflecting attacks and stunning the thieves. One thug is enveloped by the shadows and cries out in terror. Dale internally explains his newly discovered second circle shadow cloak technique, which implants parasitic shadow creations into enemies. These implanted shadows move on their own and inflict a cursed undeath, causing a victim to scream in agony. Seeing one of his men consumed, the leader is horrified. Another thug watches in shock as the corrupted body thrashes. The transformed undead monster rises, shrieking, while Dale stands calmly before it. The remaining thieves recognize the creature as undead and recoil in fear. Their leader orders them to kill the monster quickly. Realizing Dale is still just the Duke's son, he decides that a single sword stroke will end the boy regardless. He rushes forward, blade drawn. Dale's wind and shadows toss the leader's body about, disorienting him. The assassin relies on his green ore-infused assassination technique, convinced no one can block it in tight alleys. His deadly green blades crash harmlessly into Dale's seething shadows. Frustrated, he launches himself directly at Dale for a decisive strike. Dale counters with his ice bullet double-barrel buckshot spell. The pellets slam into the assassin's torso, riddling him with glowing wounds. A follow-up icy blast sends the man flying and bleeding. From hiding, Charlotte anxiously calls out Dale's name as she watches. Nearby, the undead monster slaughters the remaining thieves, shrieking as Dale and Charlotte look on. The badly wounded leader staggers to his feet, while Dale notes that aura users are impressively tough to survive one shot. The assassin, bleeding from the mouth, insists he is not finished yet. He charges Dale with a final murderous scream, only to be shredded by more shadow attacks. Dale then directs the undead creature, which obeys and continues ravaging the enemies. The monster rampages, screaming about hunger as its spikes tear through bodies. Calmly walking toward Charlotte with shadows trailing, Dale calls out to her. He asks if she is alright, and she shakily answers yes. As the last conscious thief flees in terror, Dale takes Charlotte's hand to steady her. When the man tries to run, Dale casually clips his ankle with an ice bullet, making him shriek. As the man writhes and begs for his life, Dale dismisses the undead with a command to return. Faced with the shadow creature, the remaining thief breaks and offers to tell Dale everything he knows. Trembling, he repeats that he will reveal everything if they spare him. A glowing projectile slams into his forehead, killing him mid-sentence. Dale states he is not particularly interested in hearing the man's information. He turns away from the corpse, Charlotte following, leaving the battlefield behind. Charlotte, shaken, begins to say this is the terrifying reality behind House Saxon's reputation. Dale confirms that this fearsome power is the true face of House Saxon but also the strength that will protect her. He asks how she feels seeing it up close and whether she is scared. She admits she is, a little. She then says it is alright because he fought using that power to protect her. Narration explains that after witnessing his vow and actions that day, she resolved herself about him. Charlotte vows that if Dale's house protects hers, she will someday act as his sword. She gratefully acknowledges that Dale has taught her to hope for the future. Dale resolves to keep growing stronger. His determined gaze shows his renewed resolve. Narration recalls that Dale adopted Charlotte partly from guilt. That guilt stems from Sir Bardell's fate 24 years earlier. Dale reaches out his hand toward Charlotte. Narration links Charlotte's pledge to be Dale's sword to Dale's past. Charlotte firmly clasps Dale's offered hand. Their handshake is said to carry more meaning than Dale realizes. The scene shifts to Count Brandenburg working in his estate. Reading a message, the Count curses under his breath. The letter invites the Count to visit the Saxon duchy despite how difficult it will be. The writer urges him not to refuse, describing it as a summons from the Noir Duke to demand accountability. Narration states that even the great holy swordsman cannot defy this order. A few days later at Saxon Castle, the Noir Duke politely welcomes the visiting Count. The Count stands in armor, uneasy before the ducal throne. The Duke remarks that he did not expect the Count to arrive so soon. He apologizes for the simple reception. The Count replies that nothing could be more urgent than answering the Duke's call. Watching, Dale thinks of the imperial envoys as slippery brats. The Count brings up the uproar caused by the recent kidnapping at the ducal estate. He nervously says he can guess why he was summoned. The Duke, channeling dark magic, sarcastically notes that an imperial sword like the Count could not be involved in disgraceful acts. The Duke unleashes a massive dark tempest that overwhelms the Count. The storm slams the Count and his knights, who are confused by the sudden force. The Count's subordinates are engulfed in eerie flames and panic. Begging for mercy, the Knights of St. Magdalene are shown unable to resist the spell. The Count recognizes the terrifying advanced dark magic being used. The spell is named Advanced Dark Magic, Tempest of Nihil. The Duke orders the holy swordsman to kneel. As the Count protests the severity of this act, the Duke warns him to listen carefully. The Duke adds that the Count will not receive another warning. The Count realizes the Duke is justified yet has gone unexpectedly far. He inwardly admits he did not expect the Duke to push matters this much. The Duke states he called the Count for the sake of peace while forcing him onto his knees. He threatens that if anyone harms the children of House Saxon again, he will exterminate House Brandenburg. Shaken, the Count pleads sincerely for the Duke to accept this settlement. The Duke courteously invites the exhausted Count to rest and warm himself. The Count answers that although the offer is generous, circumstances prevent him from staying long. The Duke accepts this and hopes the Count's journey home is safe. Narration notes that after this confrontation, the Imperial party leaves Saxon. Dale reflects that what his father showed Count Brandenburg, a loyal Imperial retainer, was crucial. That encounter, involving other nobles, will become the spark that ignites the Empire. The narration likens the coming turmoil to a tiny ember that will soon spread into a great fire. It is foretold that Saxon will eventually have to cut down the Holy Swordsman. In Duke Saxon's office, the Duke explains that news of making the Holy Swordsman kneel will shake the Empire. He and an elf subordinate look upon a pile of monster corpses. The Duke shows her the bodies of thieves who attacked Dale. He reveals that Dale alone killed all of them, shocking her. Narration describes the corpses as gruesomely torn and disemboweled. Seeing this, Sephia begins doubting her previous beliefs and teachings. The Duke says Dale's overwhelming power needs Sephia's guidance and offers her the position of chief advisor. Sephia realizes this means joining House Saxon itself, not just tutoring Dale. The Duke adds that Dale relies on her, and even he cannot guide the boy alone. He urges that with her support Dale's path can change. Sephia accepts, saying she understands. She declares that understanding how Dale views the world is now her most important mission. Time passes, and the story reaches Dale's 10th birthday celebration. This year's banquet is grander than before, even drawing envoys from the imperial court. Among the guests, the most notable figure approaches Dale. Dale's father welcomes Marquis Uris. The Marquis greets Dale, calling it an honor to meet him. A short time earlier, guests marveled at Saxon's lavish dishes. Nobles praise the beauty of the northern duchy as Dale moves through the hall. Dale remarks that his worries about the duchy being far from the capital now seem foolish. Narration introduces the imperial capital's central nobles, the powerful emperor's faction. Their very presence at the banquet serves as an unspoken warning. The message is that the imperial family will not tolerate any insult to the holy swordsman. Dale notes that the person most suited to convey this warning now stands before him. Marquis Uris approaches and confirms that Dale is the young master of Saxon. He introduces himself as Lord Crimson, Marquis Uris, expressing pleasure at the meeting. Narration explains that he is master of the Red Tower, whose mages worship strength and order. Those Red Tower mages are shown experimenting ruthlessly on captives for ambition. Dale recalls having once been a subject of the Red Tower's modification experiments. Uris flatters Dale as Saxon's magic prodigy, said to surpass all others in the Empire. He adds that rumors claim Dale single-handedly slew a horde of orcs at age 9. Dale accepts the praise as befitting the Duke's son. He politely hopes the Marquis enjoys the evening. Later, walking outside, Dale muses that such elaborate birthday banquets are exhausting. He thinks he would rather be training with Charlotte, though she currently serves as Elena's maid. He worries that if people knew the Divine Sword's daughter sparred with him, it could endanger her. A sudden scream interrupts his thoughts. Hearing an angry voice yelling at a maid, Dale suspects the scream is hers. He runs toward the source. A Saxon maid lies on the ground, begging her attacker for mercy. A drunken noble belittles her for invoking the Duke's name while restraining her. He brandishes a knife, mocking that everyone else is busy celebrating Dale's birthday. He leers that time is better spent with women and threatens to slit her throat if she resists. As he presses her, Dale arrives and witnesses the assault. Dale angrily demands to know what the man is doing. The maid recognizes Dale and calls out to him through tears. The attacker, flustered, asks why Dale is there. Dale pointedly asks the man if he has ever been with a woman before. The man scoffs that Dale is too young to know such things. Calling himself Petro, he suggests he could personally teach Dale while still holding the maid at knife point. Dale coldly replies that he will instead show Petro a good time. He begins casting a spell and tells the maid not to worry. Dale assures her he will free her soon while his magic circle flares. Dale reflects that in a hierarchical world, no one would suspect him of being the aggressor in this situation. He then blasts Petro with icy magic, knocking him away from the maid. Petro crashes to the ground as Dale stands protectively before the shaken maid. Dale resolves not to back down despite the political risks. He knows that angering the Emperor's representatives is dangerous. Petro, bleeding, shouts at Dale and demands to know what he is doing. Dale yells back, ordering Petro to kneel. He commands Petro to get on his knees and apologize to Eve. Dale declares that Eve serves House Saxon and is therefore part of the family. Petro protests that as the Emperor's representative, insulting him equals insulting the Emperor. Dale sarcastically asks whether the Emperor enjoys abusing noble servants for sport. Petro is stunned and accuses Dale of outrageous speech as onlookers approach. Dale tells Petro this is his final warning while the Duke, nobles, and Yuri's watch. Yuri's quietly echoes Dale's command, telling Petro to kneel. Yuri's finds the situation amusing and comments on how interesting it has become. The Duke demands an explanation, and Dale states Petro tried to assault a Saxon maid. The Duke asks if that justified such disrespect toward Lord Petro, while Petro claims Dale was reckless. Dale snaps that he never permitted Petro to stand, shocking the noble. Dale addresses the imperial guests, stating they carried the duty of acting in the Emperor's stead. He then accuses Petro of trying to violate a mere maid and thereby sully the Emperor's name. Yuri's agrees, saying Petro's disgrace cannot go unpunished. Yuri's laughs and calls Dale a clever young man. He affirms that Dale's words are true. Yuri's publicly condemns Petro for abusing the Emperor's trust by attacking a low-born maid. Yuri's ignites flames in his hand and prepares to burn Petro. He calls Petro a filthy insect, sealing his fate. Petro begs for his life as Yuri's flames surge toward him. Yuri's expression is hidden in shadow as the fire gathers menacingly. A torrent of flames engulfs Petro. Petro screams in agony, engulfed by fire that burns him alive. Yuri's tells Dale that he only spoke the truth, and that purging those who insult the Empire is his duty. He adds that he looks forward to Dale's future. Dale silently takes in what happened, resolute. After the incident, the Imperial envoys leave and calm returns to House Saxon. Time skips ahead following that night. The next morning Eve gently wakes Dale from sleep. Dale thanks her for waking him, and she modestly says it is nothing. She asks if he has anything to say, and he hesitates. Dale sincerely thanks her, and says it is an honor to be served by someone like her. He wonders if that simple gratitude was all she struggled to express and muses on unfamiliar emotions from living two lives. Smiling brightly, Dale casually thanks Eve again. He reflects that as Saxon's eldest son he understands the weight of his name, and will use it to help topple the Empire. The Duke acknowledges Dale's cleverness. However, he tells Dale that his recent behavior has been strange. Dale cautiously asks why his father thinks that. The Duke begins the story, saying that had the otherworldly hero not died battling the divine sword Bardel. He explains that the hero's sword would likely next have been wielded in Saxon Duchy. Dale responds that such talk borders on blasphemy. The Duke asks how Dale can be so certain. Dale admits it is because, in his previous life, he overheard the Empire's plot against House Saxon. A flashback shows the Empire abandoning the hero out of fear that their powerful weapon might one day turn on them. The boy explains that although the hero slew the Demon King, the Empire left the Demon Land's darkness intact. He says the Empire instead ordered the Demon King's land cultivated and demanded sacrifices from his house. The boy points out that this cursed land was even granted to the Duke. The Duke reflects that unless that land's darkness is cleansed, their suffering will continue. He adds that people inside and outside the Empire call House Saxon a clan of darkness. The boy argues that, like the abandoned hero, internal threats such as their house will eventually be removed. Shocked, the Duke asks how he knows this, and the boy says it is a logical deduction from historical records. Narration recalls the official story that the hero died honorably fighting the divine sword Bardel. The Duke thinks to himself that his surprise is natural since only a few know the real cause of the hero's death. The boy concludes that if his theory is right, the Empire is just a bully that conquers weaker nations. The Duke silently thinks that his young son shows wisdom far beyond his years. Asked what House Saxon should do, the boy answers that they can never coexist peacefully with the Empire. He begins to lay out the conclusion of his reasoning. He declares that their ultimate goal must be to destroy the Empire, stunning the Duke. The Duke tensely calls Dale's name, preparing to respond to this radical idea. He angrily demands if Dale understands the enormity of what he is proposing. Dale clarifies he is not calling for immediate rebellion. He instead suggests preparing for about 10 years, which the Duke repeats in disbelief. Dale notes that resistance groups across the continents are already struggling for independence. He adds that many vassals like the Duke fear the Empire turning against them. Dale describes how the economy is collapsing and post-war banditry is worsening despite the continent's unification. He says that in 10 years they will build enough strength to defend their house against the Empire. He continues his plan, saying they will quietly support various regional resistance forces, presenting a complete strategy to topple the Empire. Narration says father and son discuss this plan together until sunset. Later the Duke, still pondering, asks Dale what he truly thinks of the plan. The Duke's lips curl into a smile, signaling his reaction. Laughing, he praises Dale's seemingly limitless talent. He tells Dale that his foresight surpasses even his own. The Duke proudly declares he is glad Dale is his son and that from now on he will not treat him as just a child. He formally names Dale as his heir and future head of House Saxon. Dale, inwardly pleased, vows as heir to obey and respect his father's decisions. Narration states he has long awaited the day he could wield House Saxon's power himself, while his father urges him to speak freely on family matters. Dale reminds his father that he promised to treat him equally. He then asks permission to participate in the Tower trial held in the necropolis. Narration explains the Tower trial is a competitive ranking game for mages who fight the guardians of the Magic Tower. It further explains that defeating stronger guardians raises rank, with the top achievers becoming Tower Elder and the strongest of all becoming Magic Tower Master. The Duke asks if Dale truly wishes to risk his life in such a dangerous place. He protests that it is too early since Dale has not fully formed his third magic circle, but Dale insists he will soon. The Duke notes that most mages reach the third circle only in their mid-20s and doubts even his gifted son can advance so quickly. Dale says the decision serves both himself and House Saxon, prompting his father to ask why. Dale explains that proving himself in the Tower trial will cement his status as heir and strengthen his father's position. He adds that such recognition will give him genuine reputation instead of one based on rumors. The Duke confirms that Dale intends to use the Tower trial for that purpose. Dale confidently answers yes. Accepting, the Duke agrees to trust Dale's judgment regarding the trial. Dale gratefully vows to prove himself to his father. A few days later they arrive at the City of Death, Necropolis, where the Magic Tower stands. Their carriage reaches the massive gate of the Tower complex as attendants wait. Someone inside remarks that the Duke's party has finally arrived. Tower personnel bow deeply, ceremonially greeting the visiting Noir Duke. The Duke and a sleepy Dale step out, hand in hand. Dale thinks he may have overexerted himself in preparation and feels exhausted. Onlookers excitedly recognize Duke Saxon and young Master Dale, gossiping about Dale's rumored magical genius. Some observers doubt the rumors, saying Dale does not look well. One student scoffs at the stories of Dale's swordsmanship matching the Duke's knights. Introducing himself as Vilik, top academy graduate, he boasts that he will surely win the Tower trial and mocks Dale as weak. The Duke formally greets the Tower Master on arrival. An official named Eris, Elder and Secretary General of the Tower, respectfully welcomes Dale and the Duke. The Duke tells Dale that Eris will assist him throughout the trial, and Dale agrees. Dale tells Eris he will be in her care as she leads him inside. Eris informs him that 59 Academy graduates will take the trial alongside him. She opens a door, revealing a large arena where Dale and the others will compete. Standing before the gathered candidates, Eris introduces them as the competitors for the Tower trial. She formally greets everyone and reiterates her role as Elder and administrative head of the Tower. Eris begins explaining the first trial and tells them to check the life necklaces hanging around their necks. She explains the trial is a life point battle royale where each necklace holds a protective shield spell and 1 life point. She adds that striking an opponent with controlled undead on the field will shatter their necklace, activating the shield and eliminating them. Eris says the attacker who scores a valid hit gains an extra life point and that a total of 3 points is required to advance. She concludes by warning that use of magic artifacts counts as cheating, which Dale internally notes as a quick way to filter out weaklings. Dale then focuses on Vilik, the monster, rival, thinking about his strength. Other candidates, amazed Dale already reached the third circle at his age, decide they should gang up on him first. Vilik's followers ask if they are even allowed to target Dale, and he assures them it is fine. Dale states that everyone present is his competitor now and coolly wonders whether Vilik's skill matches his arrogance. At Eris's command the first trial begins and the arena erupts into magical combat around Dale. One mage unleashes a powerful purple spell. His attack brings down an opponent, demonstrating the intensity of the battle. The arena fills with undead surging toward the living candidates. One undead charges Dale with a blade raised. The attack is suddenly repelled by a powerful counterstrike. The attacking undead is shocked as frost and energy crackle over his body. Dale reveals he secretly raised and controls that undead, shocking the others. Using his undead, he launches a freezing assault that overwhelms another mage. Observers realize Dale is using water element magic through his undead. They wonder if this makes him a rare dual element necromancer. Dale's undead smashes foes apart with icy force. An enemy controlling undead objects angrily that Dale dared touch his soldiers. Dale's empowered undead protect him by intercepting another attack. Dale explains that he has encased his undead in ice armor, making them harder to destroy. He then targets an enemy necklace with a precise blast. Vilik protests that using water magic must violate the trial rules. He argues that only necromancy and undead control magic are allowed, calling Dale's magic illegal. Eris, watching, notes there is no rule restricting buffs on undead to dark magic alone. Vilik realizes from Eris's silence that Dale's tactic is technically allowed. Vilik orders his allies to block the undead and attack Dale directly. They plan to overwhelm Dale through sheer numbers. Dale reminds himself that artifacts are banned as he prepares a different approach. Surrounded by undead, he decides on the only viable tactic. He dashes forward to execute that plan. Dale slashes multiple undead in one sweeping strike. He charges another enemy, closing the distance with surprising speed. Dodging a blow, he maneuvers for a counterattack. He catches an undead's weapon and uses it as part of his strategy. With a combined blade and strike, he shatters another opponent's necklace. He readies himself for further swordplay using the improvised weapon. He cuts through more undead with skill far beyond a typical mage. Vilik and his ally gape that their undead are being felled so easily and realize Dale's sword is special. Observers deduce that Dale reforged bones with magic to make the sword durable. Dale confronts a towering undead, blade glowing with dark energy. His powerful swing devastates the ground and undead alike. He leaps high for a finishing strike while the foe watches in alarm. Dale shouts as he brings the sword down with full force. A flurry of slashes finishes off the remaining undead. Vilik watches in horror as his last undead soldier is defeated. He cannot believe a mage can wield a sword so expertly. Surrounded by fallen students, Dale advances on the shaken Vilik. Vilik begs for mercy and tries to surrender, but Dale urges him to accept the inevitable. Dale coldly notes that the trial is not lethal anyway, pressuring Vilik further. He then eliminates Vilik with a decisive strike to his necklace. As Vilik's life necklace shatters, he calls Dale a monster. Eris announces the result, declaring Dale the sole victor with 60 life points. The crowd learns that Dale alone passes the first tier, having amassed all available life points. Dale vows that this triumph will be his first step toward his larger ambitions. For the Tower Trial's second tier, the challenge is to defeat the Guardian Flesh Golem. The enormous Flesh Golem appears, and narration notes that usually surviving mages would cooperate against it. Dale admits that he already eliminated all potential allies in the first tier. Facing the giant alone, he notes that all forms of magic are now allowed, though artifacts remain forbidden. He thinks that even with the artifact ban, the new rules give him plenty of freedom. Seeing the charging golem, Dale decides this is the perfect opportunity to test the limits of his third circle. The golem's massive blow crashes down, shaking the arena. The creature rises again, growling menacingly. It gathers dark energy in its hand as the battle escalates. The golem and Dale trade powerful magic, the arena cracking under their clash. Dale activates his spell Accelerated Decay, surrounding himself with corrosive black energy. Watching from above, Eris and the Duke remark that Dale's magic is highly unusual. Observers wonder why Dale is rotting the golem instead of destroying it outright. Dale internally explains that, drawing on his previous life, he is applying a strategy akin to biochemical warfare. He notes the stench as the golem's flesh rots away under his spell. Narration says Dale continues using this horrifying black magic version of biochemical warfare, breaking through to the 10th tier in 1 day and earning 4 days rest before the 11th. Meanwhile, Vilik and other survivors prepare for a rare retrial after their earlier massacre. To compensate for the unprecedented losses of the first tier, the tower grants a new trial for the 59 other candidates, excluding Dale. That night, after the trials, Dale spends a quiet moment by a fountain. Someone calls his name, and he turns. His master Sifia approaches and praises his splendid performance. Dale credits her teaching, and she blushes, saying his words make her proud. Addressing her politely, Dale prepares to ask something personal. He nervously invites Sifia on a date, surprising her. Dale excitedly explains there is a city festival happening and insists they attend together. After a moment's hesitation, Sifia agrees, and Dale cheers. She privately reflects that while calling it a date is technically correct, she is flustered by the idea. She also thinks Dale may not fully understand what a date means, wondering wryly if his inner nature is darker than his innocent face suggests, as they head off together. Necropolis City holds a lively festival where people drink and celebrate together. Under the fireworks, a woman notes Dale must be exhausted from his hard trial, but he insists he is fine. Dale adds that they still have several days before the next trial, which reassures her. The two walk together in silence, comfortable but unsure what to say. The full moon rises high in the night sky. She remarks on the beauty of the moon and he quietly agrees, though he does not respond further. Dale internally realizes that conversation with her no longer flows as easily as before. He reflects that their quiet is not awkward, as it has always been this way with Sifia. Grateful that she has believed in him from the beginning, he admits to himself that he wants to grow closer to her. He recalls that a few days earlier, when he reached his third magic circle during meditation, he finally understood Sifia's teachings. He had done so by confronting his own inner world, enduring painful strain. To break his limits, he forced his mana beyond the capacity of his second circle. He reasoned that only by enduring rampaging mana could he obtain his third circle. The intense mana circles clashed and erupted as he attempted this breakthrough. In that inner struggle, a black sword suddenly appeared before the startled Dale. Fixating on the mysterious black sword, his attention shifted within the inner world. He then found himself standing in a desolate, snowy landscape. As he looked around the frozen terrain, he questioned what this strange place was. Remembering Sifia's explanation, he realizes he has manifested his own inner world through deep meditation. He understands that this frozen realm is his personal inner world, his world of realization. He notes that from the beginning this inner world contained nothing but complete emptiness. In that hollow world, he recalls, Master Sephia reached out to him and offered her hand. He concludes that perhaps because of that, he sees Sephia as the one who brings light into his world. Overwhelmed, Dale directly confesses to Sephia that he likes her, shocking her. Flustered, she asks him to repeat himself, and he bashfully prepares to do so. Dale clearly reaffirms that he likes Master Sephia, leaving her stunned. Sephia's expression softens into a gentle, emotional smile. She hugs him warmly and acknowledges his feelings. Embracing him back, she tells Dale that she likes him very much as well. Looking up at the moonlit city, Dale thanks his master and reflects that living a second life certainly has its advantages. A few days later, the Great Tower looms over the city as the next stage of trials approaches. On the 11th tier of the tower trial, a winded Dale stands ready, thinking he has made no romantic progress with Sephia. He assumes she dismissed his confession as a childish crush, resolves to let love wait, and focuses on the exam. An examiner announces that this trial will be a one-on-one magic duel, with the winner advancing to the 12th tier. Dale's opponent, 3rd Circle Master Albert Rosenheim, respectfully declares it an honor to face him. Dale's side warns Albert not to expect mercy simply because Dale is a child. The explanation of the 11th tier notes that all artifacts and mage strategies are allowed, meaning protective items like Dale's life necklace cannot fully ensure his safety. Dale thinks that with artifact restrictions lifted he can go all out and intends to crush his opponent to demonstrate their power gap. Before the duel is formally started, a sudden wave of magic surges toward Dale. Albert launches a surprise attack and taunts Dale to stay alert. Gloating, Albert claims he is far beyond the rookies Dale has fought and declares that Dale's winning streak will end. He chants Dark Arrow and summons numerous dark projectiles that rain down toward Dale. Confident, Albert challenges Dale to see if he can block this next onslaught. Repeating that Dale's streak ends here, Albert prepares another powerful spell. The arena erupts as Albert's barrage slams into the floor where Dale was, attempting to overwhelm him. Dale dodges through the blasts, cloak billowing as he readies his counterattack. He notes to himself that even a brief pre-start attack is a clear rule violation. Observing that the judges have not intervened, he concludes they are curious to see his true strength. As the dark arrows fill the arena, Dale thinks to himself that such reckless behavior is why he hates mages. Albert begins a new spell, calling for his creations to arise and serve him. With theatrical incantations, Albert summons dark servants born from blood-hungry darkness to obey him. Watching this dramatic summoning, Dale finds Albert's incantation embarrassingly overblown. Even while mocking it, he concedes that Albert's power is still greater than that of an average rookie mage. The summoned constructs and Dale clash violently, shaking the arena floor. Albert jeers at Dale, asking how long he plans to just dodge and insisting he cannot win by avoiding him. One of Albert's animated warriors hews down at Dale, pressing the attack. The possessed warrior continues its ferocious assault, eyes glowing with dark magic. Dale responds by using his own dark magic to drag the creations down and restrain them. Albert smirks and asks if Dale has anything else to show, thinking he has the advantage. Albert then orders a devastating spell called Death Explosion, causing his swollen creations near Dale to detonate. The ensuing blast engulfs Dale in a massive explosion of purple and black energy. Believing Dale defeated, Albert triumphantly proclaims himself the victor. Suddenly sensing something amiss, Albert's eyes widen in surprise. Looking around the ravaged arena and seeing no sign of Dale, Albert nervously asks where and when the boy vanished. A voice criticizes him for cheating against the child, causing Albert to flinch in confusion. Frightened, Albert demands to know where Dale is as shadows swirl ominously behind him. Dale reappears calmly behind Albert, remarking that his opponent looks flustered. Wrapped in wraith-like energy from his wraith transformation, Dale compliments Albert's earlier sneak attack but says it is insufficient to defeat him. Albert, trying to maintain confidence, insists that Dale's new form still will not be enough to win. The hungry wraiths around Dale mutter about wanting to devour someone, asking if they may eat Albert. Dale smiles and inwardly gives them permission, so long as they do not overeat. A gigantic wraith monster looms over Albert as Dale casually tells him not to go too far. Spectators watch in horrified awe as the dark creature prepares to strike. Albert screams as shadowy tendrils seize and tear at him. Dale notes that the wraiths have gotten a bit too excited from hunger as they continue tormenting Albert. Terrified, Albert begs Dale to spare his life. Dale orders his wraiths to stand down, slamming Albert unconscious onto the arena floor. The judges declare Dale the winner of round 1 as Albert lies defeated. Dale turns toward the remaining opponents and asks who will challenge him in round 2. The other mages, sweating nervously, shrink back at his invitation. From the 3rd round onward, his scheduled opponents surrender immediately, saying they just want to live. Narration states that all matches except the final one become default victories for Dale. As he continues ascending, Dale refines his 3 magic circles and crushes each tier's guardians. By the 20th tier, a truly formidable guardian finally appears to challenge him. This guardian is revealed as the Headless Knight, a mounted knight without a head. Observers explain that the Headless Knight was personally created by Manhwa Tower Elder, making it unlike any previous opponent. They speculate that even for Dale this might be the highest tier he can reach. Dale, however, thinks it would be dull if everything went exactly as expected and prepares to fight. He unleashes his dark power, confronting the charging headless knight head-on. The onlookers feel an oppressive surge of power and cough, wondering what is happening. Someone points out that the headless knight, instead of attacking, has suddenly dropped to one knee. To everyone's astonishment, the headless knight kneels before Dale in a gesture of loyalty. Dale silently regards the scene, processing this unexpected submission. The inner world vision shows both Dale and the knight frozen in the same snowy realm, symbolizing the bond formed. Dale commands the knight to end itself, and the obedient guardian drives its sword into its own chest. The knight collapses shattered at Dale's feet, arm and armor scattered across the arena floor. Dale reflects that the knight's loyalty is so strong it abandoned its duty as a guardian for him. Realizing the implications, he thinks he may have gone too far. Watching the stunned elders and mages, he muses that perhaps he overdid it in this trial. He concludes that their shock is natural, since a creation betrayed its maker to swear loyalty to him, proving his power rivals that of the Manhwa Tower elder. Feeling he has already proven enough, Dale wonders if he should simply leave the tower now. The audience sees him walk toward the door they assume is the exit, and question why he is leaving. Dale decides that even if he could climb higher, there is a line he should not cross. Knowing that realms beyond this tier hold unknown terrors even monsters fear, he stops here and ends his trial. Narration states that with this choice, the tower trial itself also comes to an end. Soon after, the Magic Tower Master arrives, and the entire Manhwa Tower stands to greet him and Dale like a military parade. Nobles and elders alike place hands over their hearts, paying respect to father and son. Thanks to Dale's overwhelming performance, the northern territories begin rallying under their banner. In the Saxon dukedom of the Northern Empire, Saxon knights are shown cutting down enemies in a snowy forest. A blonde knight leads brutal charges, slaying foes with sweeping blows. His focused expression shows him cutting through enemies in close combat. Saxon troops shout battle cries for young Master Dale and for House Saxon as they fight. After Dale's tower success, Duke Saxon entrusts him with command of the Orc extermination cavalry. The campaign shows Saxon knights smashing orcs apart under Dale's leadership. Though such a mission is immense for a 10-year-old, none doubt Dale's competence as their commander. As the rightful heir to the Duke of Noir, Dale steadily continues uniting the northern lands. Time passes and the great tower city stands under clear skies as peace returns. In the Duke's audience chamber, a report is given that Dale's forces have slain 145 orcs. Dale asks about their own cavalry casualties and is told only 3 knights suffered minor injuries. The Duke asks if Dale used magic to protect them, but Dale's answer is a simple no. The Duke proudly states that their success is thanks to the swords of House Saxon. He then praises Dale directly for a job well done. Helmut, Dale's knight instructor, laughs that Dale has already grown comfortable commanding large cavalry units, and Dale credits Helmut's teaching. Narration explains that Helmut has trained Dale in swordsmanship, tactics, and overall military strategy. Helmut jokes that at this rate Dale will soon be leading full-scale territorial wars. Dale, intrigued, thinks of territorial wars as a new stage and welcomes the challenge. Elsewhere, a girl named Charlotte charges at Dale during training, shouting as she swings her glowing sword. Dale and Charlotte engage in a fast-paced sparring match on the academy rooftop. Charlotte powers up her rapier with green energy and presses an aggressive attack. She nearly lands a decisive thrust at Dale, driving him back. Dale deftly slips past her sword and counters from behind, showing his superior skill. He then knocks her weapon aside, asserting control of the duel. A montage shows Dale repeatedly outmaneuvering Charlotte as their swordplay continues into the evening. At one point, Dale is surprised by a sudden counter-strike that brushes close, demonstrating her growth. Charlotte ends the spar apologetically proud, admitting Dale has improved a lot. She says she still cannot compare to him, and Dale sheepishly wonders if his teasing has gone too far. Dale replies that she is saying that to someone who is already a third-circle mage who cleared the tower's 20th tier. Charlotte complains that everyone constantly calls him Young Master Dale now, and wonders if they ever get tired of it. Dale tells her not to worry about such titles. He assures Charlotte that she will also continue to grow stronger. Dale notes internally that for a 10-year-old, Charlotte is already remarkable in her own right. Frustrated, she protests that he should stop treating her like a kid, while he points out that she still is one. She retorts that Dale is also a kid, jabbing a finger at his forehead as he feigns confusion. Dale jokes that he already considers himself an adult, and Charlotte awkwardly suggests they change the subject. Helmut calls down from the mansion roof, summoning young Master Dale for the next lesson. Inside, Helmut tells Dale that today's study session will begin. He explains that the lesson is about the hammer and anvil tactic. Using a map and chess pieces, Helmut describes how cavalry should be placed on one or both flanks in battle. He continues that the cavalry must smash through the enemy's sides to encircle them while infantry holds the enemy front in place, and Dale acknowledges the point. Helmut elaborates that the hammer and anvil tactic is named for striking enemies pinned like iron on an anvil and emphasizes that it relies heavily on strong cavalry forces. Dale reflects that their victory is only possible thanks to the Black Cavalry and that war follows similar patterns in every world. His mentor shifts the conversation and brings up another topic. The mentor asks Dale how Charlotte's training is progressing. He recalls training Charlotte, noting she is still behind Dale, but her development is impressive. He explains that Charlotte has built a solid swordsmanship foundation and will soon inherit House Saxon's aura techniques and sword style. Dale acknowledges this but notes a concern about Charlotte's compatibility with their family's sword style. The narrative explains that mages refine mana into magic through heart circles while knights refine mana into aura via cultivation techniques. Mages build magic towers through mastery of spell structure. Knights instead establish knightly orders by passing down their sword techniques, among which some stand out. The Black Cavalry of the North are introduced as devastating, chariot-like heavy cavalry. The might of House Saxon's Night Crow Knight Order exemplifies how Northern Knights dominate battlefields through raw power. Against that backdrop, Charlotte's style is described as focusing on speed and fluid movement rather than brute force. Her free-flowing sword could potentially elevate her into the lowest ranks of the 7 sword masters. However, it is stated that she will never reach the title of First Sword. The First Sword is explained as the peak of the 7 swords, a position once held by her father. A vision of Charlotte's father, the former First Sword, appears. Dale identifies that legendary style as the Sword of Blossom. His mentor laments that this sword art no longer exists. Dale notes that the style was completely lost when the Night Nation fell. He internally questions whether the technique has truly vanished from the world. Time skips as Dale's routine intensifies. While doing monster subjugations and studies, his reputation steadily rises. Eventually the moment arrives for him to demonstrate how much he has progressed, starting with a summons from his stern father. A messenger reports that Baron Parker, a neighboring lord, has initiated a territorial war over a disputed copper mine. Dale thinks that borders are vague in this world but still finds it absurd for a low-ranking noble to challenge a high-ranking one. Baron Greenbelt worries that refusing the mine and accepting the challenge will drag him into war. He reveals that Count Brandenburg has taken Parker's side and even sent a letter supporting the Baron's claim. The letter offers to dispatch the Knight Order of St. Magdalena in exchange for part of the mine's profits. Dale realizes this political maneuvering is how Brandenburg intends to play things. Remembering how Brandenburg once suffered humiliation from Duke Noir, Dale resolves to respond in kind. He directly challenges Brandenburg in his thoughts, accepting the political game. Dale deduces that since that humiliation, Brandenburg has obsessed over getting revenge on Duke Noir. He reasons that Brandenburg could not openly start a territorial war, so the Count chose a border dispute where his involvement would be deniable. Dale addresses his father to make a request. He declares that he wishes to personally command the battle alongside the Knights of House Saxon, but his father immediately refuses. Duke Noir insists it is too early for Dale to shoulder such responsibility. He warns his son not to speak recklessly, explaining that war against humans is nothing like slaying monsters. Turning to Baron Greenbelt, the Duke assures him he will personally protect the mine. Baron Greenbelt thanks him, while Dale watches silently, frustrated. Later, Dale sighs in private. He complains that he knows he is capable yet his father still will not listen, and his mentor advises him not to take the Duke's words too harshly. The mentor comforts Dale, saying the Duke must have his reasons, though Dale remains quiet. The mentor changes the mood by saying he has prepared something for Dale. He presents a checkered board and suggests they learn a strategy game together. Dale recognizes it as a war game similar to chess from his previous life. The mentor explains that while the rules are complex, mastering the game will greatly aid Dale in understanding real warfare. He adds that if Dale plays against him, they can have deep discussions about battlefield tactics. Excited, Dale realizes this is exactly what he needs and runs off with the board. Dale rushes to his father's office, startling the Duke. He proposes that if he can defeat his father in this strategy game, he be allowed to participate in the territorial war. Standing with his mentor, Dale asserts that war is more than strength, it is a contest of minds. He asks his father to evaluate him through a single match, while the mentor awkwardly offers to calm him down. The Duke unexpectedly tells the mentor to let Dale be. He adds that if Dale wins, he will grant the boy's wish. The Duke thanks Dale for his spirit but sets the condition that if Dale loses, he must abandon the idea of joining the battle. They begin their match as the Duke makes the first move on the board. The game unfolds with intense focus as Dale and the Duke trade moves. Observing, the mentor is astonished by Dale's play. Dale announces his victory over his father on the war board. Narration notes that even though Duke Saxon gave Dale superior forces and favorable terrain in the game, Dale still managed to win. It is emphasized that Dale actually won 2 out of 3 matches against the Duke himself. The mentor asks the Duke to keep his promise now that Dale has prevailed. Curious, the Duke asks since when Dale learned the game, and Dale lies that he discovered a rulebook in the library years ago. Dale internally admits this story is fabricated to avoid suspicion about knowledge from his past life. Accepting the result, the Duke says a promise is a promise. He formally grants Dale full command of the knights for the coming battle, shocking the mentor. The Duke warns that despite his expectations, the honor of House Saxon is on the line and defeat will not be tolerated. Looking serious, he asks one last time whether Dale can truly shoulder the entire fight. Dale confidently answers that he can. He pledges that if his father trusts him, he will prove himself capable. The Duke smiles and tells Dale to show the fruits of his training and return victorious. Some time later at Brandenburg's stronghold Malberg, Count Brandenburg angrily calls out his son Philip for wasting days in drunken idleness. Brandenburg rages over rumors that House Saxon's young son will personally lead their knights. He demands to know what Philip is doing while their enemy mobilizes, but Philip casually tells him not to worry. Philip arrogantly dismisses Dale as merely a 10-year-old brat. Brandenburg, infuriated, asks as the father whether he may unleash his knights on this arrogant Saxon child. He strikes Philip, furious at his disrespectful attitude. Brandenburg challenges Philip's claim that Dale is just a brat, causing Philip to stammer. He shouts that the Saxon boy is a monster Philip could not rival even in 100 years. Brandenburg then calls his own son a pathetic insect inferior to a 10-year-old. Regretting missed opportunities, he thinks he should have brought Charlotte under his control long ago. Despite his anger, Brandenburg entrusts command of their knights for this battle to Philip. He immediately undercuts that by clarifying Philip's role is merely to stand and look impressive. He states that actual command will fall to Sir Milvas while Philip serves only as a figurehead. Brandenburg orders Milvas to remove Philip, who protests as he is dragged away. Alone, Brandenburg fumes that he would prefer to lead personally but cannot seriously fight a child, suspecting Duke Saxon anticipated this. He curses Duke Saxon, believing even this situation might be part of the Duke's plan. Meanwhile, Dale celebrates his new command with his mentor. A few days later, Dale arrives at Baron Greenbelt's territory. Baron Greenbelt nervously waits to receive him. The Black Cavalry accompanying Dale make a powerful entrance beside the anxious Baron. The Baron and assembled knights formally greet young Master Dale of House Saxon. Some knights whisper doubts about the child's strength, though the Baron tries to trust the prodigy's reputation. Baron Greenbelt expresses relief that Dale is here, and Dale politely thanks him. Inwardly, however, the Baron thinks it is excessive to hand full command to someone only 10 years old, even if the Black Cavalry support him. When the Baron invites him to a welcoming banquet, Dale refuses, saying there is no time. Startled, the Baron asks what he means. Dale abruptly draws his sword to the Baron's throat, shocking everyone. Smiling, Dale explains he first wants to inspect the condition of the troops under the Baron's command. He asks which of the soldiers is the strongest. A red-haired knight steps forward proudly, declaring himself the strongest. Boasting that no one born in this region can beat him, the knight internally belittles Dale as a spoiled child granted authority by birth. He vows to put Dale in his place. Dale wordlessly steals his resolve. The Baron panics as Dale raises his sword again. Dale says everyone present seems to doubt his abilities. He points out that they mistrust him because he is a 10-year-old suddenly put in charge of a critical battle. Stabbing his sword into the ground, he notes, he too doubts the competence of the Baron's knights. He proposes that the fairest way to dispel their mutual doubts is a duel. Dale adds mockingly that the amusing part is their so-called strongest knight is clearly drunk. He thinks that with the knight proving his own unreliability, Dale hardly needs to test him. The red-haired knight asks if drinking has also made Dale bold enough to challenge him. He nevertheless agrees to fight and draws his blade. They face each other as the duel begins. The knight, named Harbuck, declares his name. Dale calmly states he will test the metal of the Baron's sword with his own honor as a knight. The two take positions in front of the watching soldiers. Dale asks Harbuck if he has heard of his unique sword style. Harbuck says he has heard much about Dale's peculiar sword and wonders where the boy's confidence comes from. He questions whether Dale really has a secret technique as he charges in. A powerful exchange sends shockwaves across the ground. Dale's movement sends Harbuck flying back. The duel continues with Harbuck unleashing aura-infused slashes while Dale counters with dark energy. Harbuck is shocked by Dale's control as the purple aura envelopes the field. Both clash again in a flurry of blows, Harbuck roaring as Dale's dark power meets his aura blade. Dale presses the attack with unwavering focus. Narration notes that Harbuck's sword lacks aura compared to true high-ranking knights who can wield aura blades. Dale decides that since Harbuck is giving his all, he should respond seriously too. He gathers his dark magic, forming a menacing spell circle before him. Harbuck finds himself inside a swirling field of shadow and demands to know what is happening. The dark energy envelopes him, startling him further. He flails amid the encroaching shadows, trying to defend himself. Harbuck curses as Dale's relentless attacks and artifact disrupt his concentration. Dale continues to bombard him with dark projectiles from the spell circle. Calmly assessing, Dale judges Harbuck's skill as actually mediocre. Suddenly something unexpected happens, catching even Dale off guard. Harbuck collapses to the ground screaming in pain, clearly defeated. Dale stares in disbelief, wondering if Harbuck is seriously finished already. He confirms internally that the knight went down shockingly easily. Baron Greenbelt, panicking, shouts at Dale for incapacitating an elite knight right before the battle. Dale bites back irritation at the accusation. He asks the Baron if he truly comprehends their situation. Dale bluntly states that with such pathetic skill, Greenbelt's forces would only hinder House Saxon in the coming fight. He questions whether the Baron planned to let Saxon do all the fighting while he simply watched. Dale then challenges whether Harbuck is really the knight the Baron proudly calls his strongest. He declares that House Saxon never hesitates to act as a shield for its allies. But he adds that this loyalty does not absolve the Baron from fulfilling his own responsibilities. Therefore, Dale proclaims that until the battle begins, Saxon's knights will act as Greenbelt's sword. Standing before the assembled troops, Dale orders them to make a choice. He asks whether they will follow his command or lose their land to the enemy. Moved and intimidated, the knights kneel in acknowledgement of Dale's leadership. Dale stands before the kneeling knights, sword in hand, as they await his command. The knights pledge their loyalty to the young Dale. Night falls over a grand estate, signaling a shift to events inside. A woman worries, but is gently told there is no need for concern. The man assures her that their child holds far greater potential than they can imagine. He predicts that when Dale grows up, he will witness things beyond even the father's understanding. The father smiles confidently about his son's future. Dale recalls his parents proclaiming he will someday rule the world and despairs that there seems to be no hope. Sitting on his bed, Dale realizes he has been a sheltered frog in a well and now sees how incompetent the outside world truly is. Analyzing the Holy Swordsman's intervention in Greenbelt, Dale decides he will form his own plans. The next day dawns bright over the castle as heavy breathing hints at intense activity. A knight strains to drag a massive boulder as part of grueling training. Exhausted knights beg for mercy, but their instructor shouts that it is too soon to collapse. Watching from under a canopy throne, Dale orders the fallen knight to stand and questions his right to be called a Northern Knight. When the knight claims injury, Dale coolly points out he has done nothing yet worth complaining about. Dale instructs Sir Bale to retrain Baron Greenbelt's knights from basic stamina upward, noting they are unqualified. Dale then orders a messenger sent to Baron Parker to propose negotiations, surprising his retainer. He clarifies that he will not accept humiliating peace. He simply wishes to meet someone before the battle. A neutral tent is set up at the border as the official negotiation site between the two baronies. Inside the tent, Dale waits at the table with his knights standing guard. Dale, now in formal attire, begins the meeting by stating they have only a few weeks at best. He explains that the Knight Order of St. Magdalena is on a long march with poor supplies, making a preemptive strike likely. He adds that Baron Parker's knightly forces are strong and must not be underestimated. Lord Philip enters the tent to face Dale across the table. Dale notes to himself that the opposing side sent exactly the two men he expected. He mentally labels blonde Philip as a hollow figurehead commander, brought only for show. Dale identifies the stoic knight behind Philip as Sir Milvus, the true commander of their forces. Dale greets Philip, who laughs as he sits down. Philip mocks Dale for wanting negotiations after everything that has happened. He taunts Dale as a frightened brat, while Dale remains silently amused. Dale asks why they accepted his offer to negotiate, prompting Philip to start to answer. Dale cuts him off, saying he was not asking Philip. He bluntly calls Philip a puppet figurehead and states he is really speaking to the true commander behind him. Dale names Sir Milvus the Pure Sword, shocking both Milvus and Philip. Smiling, Dale asks if he is wrong and questions why a holy swordsman would entrust an entire battlefield to someone talentless. He presses the point, wondering why command would be given to someone with no skill at all. Milvus urges Philip not to be shaken, while Philip sees at Dale's provocation. Milvus internally panics that Dale somehow knows Count Brandenburg considers Philip a disgrace, a secret shared by only a few. Dale asks how it feels to know one's own father has no trust in him. Milvus announces the talks are over and urges Philip to leave, saying they have no reason to stay. Philip angrily agrees they should return immediately. Dale criticizes Philip for lowering his head to take orders from someone beneath him. He says Philip looks like a slave and questions if that suits a count's firstborn. Philip, rattled, compares his situation to a dog putting a leash on its master. Milvus begs him not to listen, but Philip shouts for silence. Dale watches serenely as Philip fumes. Stretching, Dale remarks that at this rate he cannot tell whether Philip is the holy swordsman's puppet or Milvus's. He repeats that Philip seems nothing more than a puppet controlled by others, further needling Milvus. Dale reveals to himself that the real purpose of these talks is to disrupt the enemy's command, not to seek peace. He sends Sir Bale outside, asking to be left alone with the enemy leaders. Bale exits, leaving Dale facing Philip and Milvus by himself. Dale cheerfully suggests they now speak in private. He proposes that only the two highest-ranking commanders talk directly. Philip acknowledges that both he and Dale bear ultimate responsibility for the battlefield. After hesitation, Philip grudgingly agrees to the private discussion. He then orders Milvus to leave at once, asserting his authority. Philip shouts that as highest-ranking commander he must be obeyed, while Milvus protests. Milvus realizes Philip has fully fallen for Dale's bait but can only comply. He reluctantly accepts Philip's order and departs. Dale thanks Philip and repeats that he requested this meeting purely to negotiate. Philip asks if Dale truly has an offer that could convince him, and Dale confirms he does. Dale proposes that if the Knight Order of St. Magdalena withdraws from the war immediately, House Saxon will fully supply their long return journey, startling Philip. Outraged, Philip demands how such terms count as negotiation, while Dale calmly says they do. Dale apologizes if his earlier insults offended Philip but insists he still wants their forces withdrawn. He warns that otherwise Philip's army will be annihilated, many knights captured, the holy swordsman's reputation ruined, and Philip's own name disgraced. Dale adds that this is Philip's final chance to retain even a shred of dignity. Philip laughs bitterly, convinced now that Dale only intended to mock them from the start. Dale, smiling darkly, says it is a shame Philip refused the offer. He tells Philip that was his last chance, and asks if he is not afraid. Dale explains that if the battle is lost, the one blamed will not be Milvus but Philip himself. He drives the point home that history will remember Philip as the incompetent firstborn who failed. Philip denies it internally, refusing to accept that outcome. He vows that Dale will not be smirking for long. Dale replies that Philip should cling to that confidence while he still can. The narration states that negotiations collapsed, and the scene shifts shortly afterward to Greenbelt Barony. From Greenbelt's walls, Philip asks scouts what the enemy is doing. Milvus reports that House Saxon's knights have started mobilizing. Observing Dale, Milvus notes the boy's sharp eyes and calm demeanor. He reflects that despite being only 10, Dale does not look like a novice and must not be underestimated. Milvus decides that precisely because Dale is still a 10-year-old, this is their best chance to kill him. He resolves to cut Dale down now to halt his growth. Rallying his men, Milvus vows to teach Dale the meaning of silence. Back at Greenbelt, a knight reports to Dale that the enemy's main force is advancing, and Dale praises him. Mounted in armor, Dale raises his sword before his assembled Night Crow Knights. He proclaims that the time has come for the swords of House Saxon to act. Dale urges his troops to shed blood worthy of their house's name as they roar in response. A horn is blown to signal the charge. Cavalry and infantry surge forward, colliding in fierce battle. Milvus's heavy cavalry smash into the front lines, wounding defenders. Milvus orders the 1st Cavalry Battalion to advance. He explains that the key to victory is stopping House Saxon's Night Crow Knight order, though he is unsure of their true strength. To avoid risks, he insists Philip stay in the center of the formation rather than the front. He stations Baron Parker's forces on the left wing to tie down Greenbelt's knights. During this, Milvus plans to lead Count Brandenburg's elite troops in a flank attack against the Night Crows while the other wings hold. He cries that they must not miss this chance as his cavalry charges downhill. Greenbelt soldiers shout warnings about the danger. Brandenburg knights countercharge for their county. A devastating lance strike pierces a defender, scattering the line. Another knight is stunned mid-fight by the ferocity of the attack. Dale appears on horseback and tells his men the battle will not unfold as the enemy intends. Some of his knights rejoice that they survived the first assault. Others cheer as they notice that young Master Dale has personally come to the front. Dale commands everyone not to retreat and to fight to the last. He leads a mounted charge, shouting for House Saxon. Watching, Milvus observes Dale and his elites cutting into their troops. Milvus deduces that Dale intends to settle things with a direct clash of main forces from the outset, and even uses himself as bait, which Milvus finds impressive. Yet Milvus admits this scenario is exactly what he desired. He rallies his knights under the banner of St. Magdalena. Other cavalry ride shouting for Count Brandenburg. Dale's sub-commander orders that no enemy be allowed near their lord and commands the entire army to charge. Both sides slam into each other in a massive, glowing clash. Milvus pushes forward, declaring they will end the battle quickly. He urges his 1st Cavalry Battalion to follow and promises to defeat Dale to finish the war. He exhorts his elites to prove their reputation on this day. The holy swordsman himself carves through enemies on the field. An aura-wreathed Greenbelt knight attacks Milvus with a mighty swing. Milvus turns to face the blow, raising his weapon. He barely blocks the powerful strike. Blades clash furiously as he continues to fend off the attacker. A crimson aura slash cuts down another Brandenburg knight nearby. Milvus sees one of his own fall and realizes how dangerous the situation is. He senses that something is wrong as purple energy swirls ominously around him. Observing that their elites are being pushed back and the Night Crows seem too weak, he orders a temporary retreat and reformation of the lines. He wonders why the famed Night Crow cavalry, reputed battlefield destroyers, appears so unimpressive, feeling that something is off. A messenger rides up reporting news from the embattled left wing. Milvus hears that Baron Parker's forces are being overrun and cannot withstand the assault. On that flank, Parker's men are cut down in terror. Milvus is shocked to learn that Greenbelt's knights there are using aura techniques. Another messenger tells Philip that Baron Parker's left wing desperately requests reinforcements. Philip is then informed that Saxon's aura knights have already broken through Parker's lines, which he finds impossible. Under pressure, Philip is asked for orders. Remembering Dale's earlier warning that he would bear the blame for defeat, Philip refuses to let that prediction come true. A new message from Milvus suggests merging center and rear cavalry with the left wing to bolster the defense. Instead, Philip shouts for silence, rejecting the advice. He redirects all rear cavalry to himself and orders an attack on the enemy right wing. Consumed by hatred, Philip vows to kill Dale before the left collapses. Milvus then receives word that Dale is actually bringing his entire rear cavalry toward their position. Milvus fumes that he had specifically ordered Philip to save the left wing and curses him as a worthless brat. Strategically reflecting with a chessboard metaphor, Milvus notes that their right already pushes back the enemy's weakened left, so more troops their only cloud movement. He laments that Philip, obsessed with striking Dale, ignored all calls for aid and caused a catastrophic misjudgment. Milvus foresees that if this continues the left wing will collapse and their entire army will be encircled. Concerned knights urge Milvus that they must now retreat. Milvus decides it is still not yet time to fall back. Philip, on the other hand, watches the field with a hardened expression. Dale, sword drawn, declares that the battle is far from over. Milvus notes the absolute confidence in Dale's eyes and vows to crush that arrogance himself. A knight raises his sword high in preparation for another command. Philip again calls out to his 1st Cavalry Battalion, readying them. Elsewhere, Saxon commanders state there is only one remaining path forward, implying the decisive phase of the battle is about to begin. The blonde commander silently prepares as his knights clamor for him to give the order to attack. Before battle, the knights invoke Saint Magdalena and pray for their pure swords to be blessed. They further pray for Goddess Sistina and the sister goddesses to protect them with grace and mercy. The commander's eye sharpens, signaling a sudden, fierce resolve. He declares they will now break through the enemy lines and seize the opposing commander's head. He commands his riders to raise their swords and charge behind him. Shouting for Saint Magdalena, the holy knights race toward the black-armored boy facing them. The black-armored boy notes that the enemy is finally closing the distance. As they advance, the blonde commander thinks that a leader's vision narrows on the front line. The boy draws a glowing ice bow, thinking how war's pressure clouds judgment. The commander realizes that even the famed Sir Milvus is not free from that weight, then notices the boy using magic. The boy names his spell Ice Bullet and taunts them for never having seen magic before. He unleashes a powerful wave of ice energy toward the charging holy knights. One knight's horse is struck in the chest by an ice projectile and begins to fall. The wounded knight is thrown, crashes to the ground headfirst, and lies motionless. Seeing the precise shot from a galloping mount, the blonde commander is shocked by the boy's skill. The boy analyzes that such magic requires exceptional mounted combat and archery, far beyond what others could copy. He begins another spell, calling for something to rise. A massive wall of ice erupts from the ground, completely blocking the holy knight's path. The blonde commander and his men realize in dismay that an ice wall now obstructs their advance. The black-armored commander shouts the signal to execute the next part of his plan. He orders all his forces to launch a full counterattack. His riders form a wedge, vowing to die as a shield before letting an enemy blade reach their young master. The two cavalry lines clash violently, with black-armored riders striking down the holy knights. Amid the melee, Milvus clutches his head, overwhelmed as his formation collapses around him. He realizes they've been thoroughly deceived, that the enemy's aim was to protect their commander, and buy time, not to kill him. He further understands that Lord Philip has made the worst possible choice on the field. Because of Philip's mistake, the center crowded onto the right flank and the entire front line twisted out of shape. Cursing, Milvus concludes there is only one remaining option as he rides toward the ice wall. He attempts a desperate aura-charge leap, only to be violently thrown back. The ice wall shatters and the boy appears directly in front of Milvus. Milvus declares that Dale can go no farther, and that he himself will face the boy. Dale calmly meets the challenge, unfazed by Milvus's aura. A blinding clash of attack streaks across the battlefield. The battle ends with the holy knights disarmed and kneeling while Dale stands victorious with his men. Dale reflects that Milvus still overestimates Aura Knight's power. He muses that the rigid battle doctrines of Saint Magdalena's order can become their fatal weakness. Dale recalls that in his previous life his jailer was the holy swordsman who led that order, so he learned their ways well. He knows their tactics as intimately as his own hand, as a knight reports that Baron Greenbelt's forces have been broken through. Milvus hears that Baron Parker of the left wing has been captured as well and bitterly blames Philip. Dale tells Milvus that Philip clearly never trusted them and that the Holy Order had been lured into a trap from the start. Dale remarks that war is chaotic and no one can predict its outcome. One of Dale's knights states that in such repeated chaos, those who ruin themselves have only their own foolishness to blame. Dale announces that, following imperial tradition, he will spare lives in exchange for gold and asks if they will beg for mercy. The Holy Knights angrily declare they would rather die than beg. Dale coolly acknowledges this defiance. He rules that those unwilling to beg will simply die, and his men cut them down. Dale then asks Milvus directly whether he will also refuse to beg. Under that pressure, Milvus suddenly kneels. Dale watches as Milvus's knights cry out to their commander in shock. Milvus admits inwardly that he is not afraid of death itself, but he feels compelled to warn the Holy Knights that Dale is truly dangerous. Milvus orders all of his men to kneel and surrender with him. He formally yields according to imperial custom and demands proper treatment as prisoners of war. Dale notes that if they can kneel and beg for life, further provocations will change nothing. Milvus interrupts, refusing to let his men be baited further. Dale smiles coldly and declares that none of them will be allowed to survive. He orders his own knights to kill all the prisoners. Even Dale's Night Crow Knights momentarily gasp, since ransom and release are the customary treatment for captured nobles. Narration explains that despite the shocking order, Dale's voice remains firm. For the Knights of Saxon, their young master's commands override everything, and they move to obey. Narration adds that on this field one man brought ruin upon himself, as Milvus curses Dale. Milvus surges up in a last suicidal charge, refusing to fall without resistance. Dale's men impale him from behind, mortally wounding him. Milvus collapses to the ground, spears pinning him as Dale approaches. Dale supports the dying man and addresses him as Sir Milvus. Milvus weakly asks whether Dale remembers the manner of his death. Dale grins and says he vividly recalls seeing Milvus's face that night. He reveals that Milvus was present when his own lord betrayed and stabbed him in the back. Dale reminds him that he saw Milvus's lord drive a sword into his former body. Dale repeats the question, now clearly implying he is that slain man reborn. Milvus realizes this impossibility and is horrified. He cries out that Dale must be a monster who clawed back from death. Dale answers by drowning him in dark power, immobilizing him. Milvus, bleeding, manages a final confirmation. Dale states that only now, after killing him, does he feel any relief. A flashback shows that in the original timeline Philip chose reckless charges that led to his knight's slaughter. Scene after scene shows his forces being cut down and routed. Philip narrates that when he regained his senses the battle was already lost. He acknowledges that the right-wing cavalry was crushed and Milvus and the Aura Knights were all dead. The left wing had also collapsed and black cavalry were surrounding Philip's main force. Philip is haunted by memories of Dale's mocking smile during that previous defeat. Back in the present, his subordinates urge him to make a decision. Philip mutters that they cannot lose like this, shocking his officers. He rouses himself and orders everyone to fight to the bitter end, claiming his order will never kneel. When warned they'll be wiped out, he angrily demands if they dare disobey their highest-ranking commander. He then orders a final, desperate charge. Philip personally charges, panicking as he closes with Dale's forces. Terrified, he orders his men to stop Dale and shield him. Internally he laments that he wished to die in bed, not on a battlefield. The scene cuts back to Dale's victory, where his knights cheer around him. A subordinate praises that everything has gone exactly according to Dale's plan. Meanwhile Philip, now captured, struggles and demands to be released. Dale notes that Philip clearly hates the idea of surrender. Philip claims that though broken, they will never truly be defeated, which Dale mocks as hypocritical. Philip insists that as commander he has a duty to survive, and Dale questions that excuse. Dale replies that since the battle is over Philip need not live, and raises a sword toward him. Panicking, Philip hastily agrees to Dale's suggestion of a duel to decide the battle's fate. One of Dale's men calls the idea absurd, but Dale casually accepts the duel. Dale faces Philip and simply says, "All right." Philip, thinking he has a chance, accepts with a confident smile. He lunges, believing he sees an opening in Dale's guard. Philip secretly gloats, having expected Dale to accept his ploy. He swings with all his might, cursing Dale as an arrogant brat. A sheet of dark power stops Philip's strike cold, shocking him. Philip feels that dreadful power and falters. Dale's knights watch expressionlessly as the dark aura racks Philip's body, making him scream. Reduced to a wreck, Philip begs Dale to spare his life. Bleeding on the ground, he hears narration that the grand war ends with a pathetic scream. Time skips as trumpets sound to herald the returning army. Dale rides into the capital in triumph, while the crowd celebrates his victory. Onlookers loudly praise him for perfectly executing an encirclement that annihilated Saint Magdalena's order. Yet some townsfolk quietly remark that the victory came with horrific bloodshed. Cardinal Nikolai questions whether the gods truly desired such wholesale killing. He worries that though Dale's blade currently faces enemies, one day it may turn against their own people. Dale later enters a grand hall with his guardian. Someone calls his name, drawing his attention. His little sister Lisa runs joyfully toward him, shouting for Dale. Dale hugs her tightly, asking if she missed him, and she happily says she did. Sir Helmut congratulates Dale on his first victory, and Dale thanks him politely. Dale stands proudly with Lisa, hand in hand, before their watching retainers. Two robed women, likely mages, also stand observing Dale's return. Dale approaches his parents seated on their thrones and bows. Kneeling, he formally reports their victory to the Duke of Saxon. His father praises him for splendid leadership and credits the sword of House Saxon. The Duke then thanks Sir Bale for guiding Dale well as Dale stands at attention. Dale's mother warmly remarks that he must be tired after battle. She tells him to rest for now, and he thanks her. Dale smiles inwardly, basking in this moment of familiar warmth. He reflects that after months away it truly feels like he has returned to a real home. Meanwhile, elsewhere, Count Philip's father anxiously awaits news. Two badly injured men from Philip's side limp in, and he demands to know where Philip is. They report that the Knight Order of St. Magdalena, including Milva's and the Aura Knights, has been wiped out and Philip captured. They add that House Saxon is demanding an enormous ransom for Philip and his remaining attendants. The Count erupts in fury that they suffered a crushing defeat, while their master fled and lived. He asks if they understand the penalty for deserters, and they beg for mercy. He orders the survivors dragged to the dungeon, promising a fate worse than death. Narration notes that this battle, later dubbed the Black and White Turning Point, grew ever more embellished in retellings. It adds that Dale, who showed no mercy to enemies begging for their lives, became infamous as the Black Young Master. Time passes and Dale turns 11, his father noting it is already his 11th birthday. The Duke explains that at the coming birthday ceremony he will appoint Dale as a Viscount of Saxon. Dale is stunned by the magnitude of this gift. Narration clarifies that a Viscount wields a lord's authority, and that this fulfills his father's promise to treat him as an independent head of house. Dale thanks his father, who asks what he plans to do with such authority. The Duke prompts him to speak his wish as his representative. Dale says people believe the Black Young Master cruelly spared no prisoners in that battle. He adds that knights faithful to the goddess have been portrayed as victims of his brutality. Dale points out that the church will be angered by that legend. He therefore proposes going on pilgrimage to the papal state of Sistina to personally bear the weight of the infamy he has created. Repeating the proposal, Dale declares he will journey to Sistina and shoulder the burden of his notorious deeds himself. The long-haired man silently studies Dale, trying to grasp his intentions. He questions why Dale would trade the valuable asset of fear and his own infamy to gain the church's favor. Dale replies that the church is influential enough to be worth sacrificing his fearsome reputation for. The man asks if Dale has another plan, and Dale confirms that he does. Dale explains that he will present the church with an offer they cannot refuse. He adds that he plans to obtain the forbidden grimoires from them as well. A flashback shows Dale days earlier, waking from a nightmare as a dark voice asks if he remembers. In the nightmare a skeletal being looms over him, demanding if he remembers its death. Dale answers that both of them remember how they died. The memory continues with him invoking the power called Memento Mori as he is fatally struck. Dale wakes on his bed, breathing hard from the vision. Clutching his chest, he reflects anxiously on the nightmare he just experienced. He recalls the place in his mind called the Abyss of the Mind. Dale narrates how he forced open his inner world to reach the third circle, learning that mastering the mind world is central to being a mage. He resents that the mind world that gave him power also torments him with loneliness and nightmares, calling the situation pitiful. Determined, he admits he is still lacking and needs greater power to fully control his mind world. He reflects that just as a knight relies on a sword, a true mage must rely on a grimoire. Time shifts to a journey by carriage through a forest toward a distant fortress. Narration sets the scene at the border between Baron Greenbelt's and Baron Parker's lands, beyond Duke Saxon's direct reach. It explains that, after losing to Dale in battle, Baron Parker was left with only one path. That remaining choice is to turn to banditry, and his men prepare an ambush, shouting to attack. Arrows rain down toward the passing carriage. The barrage narrowly misses the horses as the cloaked driver steers through it. Bandits surround the wagon, scolding the travelers for entering Parker's territory without permission. The besieged driver calmly asks the bandits what they want. One bandit insists that paying a toll is common sense in a noble's lands while Dale stays silent beside the driver. The driver agrees and says he has prepared money to pay the toll. Their leader smirks, thinking the travelers understand how things work. Bandits inspect the offered pouch with greedy interest. Seeing the pile of gold, they marvel at how generous a toll it is. Their leader magnanimously says he will let them pass this time and even invites them to come again. The wagon rolls past as the bandits watch with smug satisfaction. Parker's men celebrate their easy profit after the wagon departs. A little farther down the road, the wagon continues quietly onward. Suddenly another group blocks the path from above, ordering the wagon to stop, startling Dale and his escort. These men introduce themselves as Baron Parker's procession and demand respect for the Baron. They accuse the travelers of trying to cross their land without paying a toll, confusing Dale's escort. The escort protests that they already paid the fee to Parker's subordinates, and asks if multiple tolls in one territory are even legal. The bandits brazenly deny any prior payment and mock the claim. They insist they have just met and hypocritically assert that they, of all people, uphold the Empire's laws. Parker's side demands that, if Dale values his life, he should surrender everything he has, boasting of surviving the black and white turning point. Dale muses aloud that Baron Parker is hailed as the hero who turned the tides in that battle. The bandits laugh loudly at Dale's remark, not understanding his angle. Dale says that description of Parker differs greatly from the man he remembers. Parker stiffens in shock as he begins to recognize who the boy is. Realizing the truth, he stammers and identifies Dale as the terrifying young Master Dale. Parker tries to calm his panicking men, pointing out that there are only two opponents. He rallies his troops, insisting the fight is winnable and ordering his archers to aim. Dale's escort asks for Dale's command, and Dale replies that their act of tolerating the bandits ends here. In response, Parker orders his men to kill them all and commands the archers to fire. The archers loose a deadly volley of arrows. Dale faces the incoming projectiles without flinching. His escort leaps forward, sword flashing, and slices the arrows from the air to shield him. Cloaked in dark energy, the escort acknowledges Dale's order and prepares to counterattack. The archers stare in fear, realizing their arrows were effortlessly negated. The escort bounds up the cliff, weapon raised with ominous power, startling a nearby archer. He cleaves the archer's arm in a single stroke, leaving the man screaming. With a cold gaze, the escort prepares to continue the brutal counter. He charges into the mounted bandits below in a whirlwind of dark-infused strikes. Witnessing the massacre, Baron Parker begs for his life in disbelief. Parker throws himself at Dale's feet, pleading for forgiveness and vowing eternal loyalty. Dale, smiling, asks Parker to grant him the mercy supposedly offered by the sister goddess. Then he abruptly asks why he would ever do that, leaving Parker horrified. Narration explains that on his journey Dale repeatedly encountered robber nobles and bandit knights like Parker. Weeks later, Dale and his escort travel by boat down a narrow river gorge. The escort announces that they have finally arrived at their destination. Before them rises the magnificent city of Pucel in the papal state of Sistina, seat of the Holy See. Dale inwardly scoffs at calling such a corrupt city holy. He narrates that, though he outwardly calls this a pilgrimage, in truth he has come to pass judgment. They are escorted through a grand cathedral toward an inner chamber guarded by armored soldiers. Dale and his escort enter with solemn determination. Kneeling before the cathedral throne, they formally greet the high church authority. The man is identified as Cardinal Nikolai Macchia. Dale recognizes him as a 6th Circle white mage and one of the church's 12 top clergymen. Nikolai remarks that he has heard how much blood was spilled in Dale's recent battle. He calls the deaths of the Crusader Order and the outcome of the black and white turning point regrettable. Dale humbly blames his own poor judgment for unnecessary sacrifices and says he has come to atone. He claims that, to hide his power and status, he personally came on this pilgrimage to the papal state, while his escort silently bears the exaggeration. Privately, Nikolai reflects that Dale, famed genius son of Noir's master, might be worth investing his hopes in. Nikolai wonders if trauma and guilt from the battlefield have weighed on the still young 11-year-old before him. Deciding this suits his goals, Nikolai smiles that the goddess's mercy is open to all, including Dale. Dale listens with downcast eyes as Nikolai insists that no sin in the world is beyond cleansing. Dale repeats Nikolai's claim about all sins being erasable, and the cardinal affirms it. Dale then pointedly asks whether that same logic justified selling the goddess's own nation to the Empire. Nikolai laughs nervously and tries to dismiss Dale's accusation as an inappropriate joke. Dale recounts how, before the theocracy was annexed, 12 cardinal bishops urged the previous pope to accept annexation. He reminds Nikolai that he himself was among those present when the Pope refused the Empire's demands to the very end. Dale recalls how, as a result of that refusal, the Pope was assassinated. The narration reveals that, due to the betrayal of the White Magic Tower and those cardinals, the Pope fell to the Empire's executioners. Dale coldly asks whether the goddess also pardoned Nikolai's betrayal in selling out his own country. Nikolai grits his teeth at the accusation, unable to answer. Radiating light magic, he claims Dale asked for atonement and prepares to attack. He condemns Dale for speaking forbidden truths and scoffs that the goddess's mercy would ever favor him. Dale boldly counters that killing one of the Duke's proxies will not silence what he knows. He explains that the Duke has no interest in exposing the Church's sins. Instead, Dale demands that the Cardinal pay to keep his silence. Cornered, Nikolai seethes as he weighs Dale's threat against the Church's secrets. He shuts his eyes, realizing he has no choice but to treat with the boy. His magic calms as he reluctantly listens to what Dale will ask. Dale smiles and asks directly what concession he can obtain. He says he knows of a secret archive beneath the cathedral where the Church hides its forbidden books and hints that it interests him. Dale demands unrestricted access to this library of hell, particularly to the most terrifying grimoire stored at its lowest level. That feared book is named the Book of Black Goat. Later, lantern in hand, Dale descends alone toward the underground library, noting that only one person may enter. Nikolai has stipulated that whatever happens in the library will not involve or implicate the Church. He further rules that Dale may remove only a single grimoire and nothing else. Nikolai also makes Dale swear eternal secrecy regarding the Church's disgraceful past, which Dale formally does as the Noir heir. To seal this vow, they clasp hands as part of a sacred contract ritual. A divine figure manifests as they bind themselves with the magic oath known as Hayas. Dale declares that both his heart and the cardinals are pledged as collateral to the contract. He narrates that this Hayas linked them, enforcing the terms with the power of contract magic. Descending to the library, Dale notes that if he breaks the promise, the Hayas will literally burst his heart, though he does not consider the secret very meaningful. Standing before huge doors, he recognizes them as the gate of hell leading into the forbidden archive. He reads the ominous inscription warning all who enter to abandon hope. He steels himself and reaches for the doors to go inside. With effort, Dale pushes the heavy doors open and peers into the darkness beyond. He steps through, determined, ready to face whatever the library holds. Inside, he reflects that the place is aptly nicknamed Hell. He explains that despite looking like a library, it is actually a massive dungeon filled with disaster-bringing forbidden tomes. He reiterates that, like a renowned knight with a masterwork blade, a mage naturally seeks the best possible grimoire despite the risks. Suddenly he encounters armored figures, startling at the unexpected presence. An undead squad of holy knights shambles toward him, prompting Dale to wonder if they are the library's guardians. Observing how readily these so-called servants of light exploit corpses, he judges them no better than the necromancers of the Noir Tower. The undead knights charge Dale with weapons raised as shadowy power gathers at his feet. Dale unleashes dark magic that rips through the undead, striking them down. He notes there is no one here to deceive, so he can finally fight without hiding his true strength. Casting the spell Shadow Bullet, he annihilates the remaining undead in a storm of purple projectiles. Standing among their bodies, he admits it feels refreshing not to restrain himself. Drawing a dagger, he says it is time to proceed with the real purpose of his visit. He cuts his own arm, declaring his identity as Dale of Saxon. Letting blood fall to the floor, he proclaims himself rightful successor of the immortal Duke's bloodline. He then recites a summoning, calling upon the Black Goat of the Forest to honor the ancient contract with his clan. A voice marvels at the potency of the mage's blood Dale has offered. Excited, the disembodied voices recognize that a young mage seeks a contract and urge him closer, promising power. Another voice forcefully claims Dale as its own contractor, driving the others back. Immersed in a blood-red vision of corpses, Dale senses overwhelming hatred, killing intent, and the reek of slaughter. He calmly observes the sea of blood and wonders if he has been pulled into a world inside a book. A hooded executioner-like figure appears behind him, offering a contract and promising to kill all Dale's enemies. The creature elaborates that it will create a festival of blood using the bodies of anyone who stands in Dale's path. Its repeated promise of carnage echoes as Dale listens with a distant expression. Dale concludes that, given the scene, he must be inside the mind world of the grimoire known as the Book of Massacre. Narration describes this Book of Massacre as blood magic embodying mass murder, whose power and value are beyond description. Despite the offers, Dale tells the executioner to step aside. The hooded being responds that Dale is not the type of person it seeks. Enraged at the rejection, the creature attacks, shouting in fury at being refused. It demands to know how Dale expects to escape alive, but Dale smiles and asks why he should not be able to. Dale counters with his own overwhelming power, sending a massive blast down upon the executioner. He explains that this is only a world within a book, and that such a world cannot overpower his own. Declaring that his mind world is fundamentally different, he lets dark power surge behind him. That power manifests as his world expands and begins to devour the Book of Massacre's world. Dale reflects that, though this world should mirror the thoughts of a monstrous war criminal, the 6th Circle Mage's domain is being overwhelmed by his own with surprising ease. An unseen foe panics at being overwhelmed by the mental world of the seemingly calm child mage. The hooded warrior boasts that his past massacres far exceed the kills of the boy's current master. He claims that his forgotten tally of slaughter speaks for how many lives he has taken. As he screams and rushes forward, the boy stands composed, ready for the attack. The berserker roars that he will not quietly be consumed and swings his weapon down at the boy. An unseen force shatters the berserker's body and weapon mid-charge in front of the boy. The broken warrior realizes in shock that his body is crumbling apart. Cracking and staggering, he mutters that what is happening is impossible, while the boy turns away. The boy stands with eyes closed as the disintegrating enemy collapses around him in a red landscape. The hellish scene fractures like glass and the boy asks if a certain presence has returned. A horned girl appears cheerfully behind him and greets him flirtatiously. He turns and bluntly asks her why she summoned him. She approaches happily, saying she is glad to see him because she has been lonely. Smiling eerily, she asks if he will play with her. Observing the gloomy library, the boy notes inwardly that this place feels cold and lonely. Narration explains that the Book of Black Goat is a grimoire by immortal Duke Frederick, who sacrificed his young daughter seeking truth beyond death. The boy reasons that although the grimoire's avatar looks like a little girl, the being before him is not the Duke's real child. He straightforwardly asks the daughter of Black Goat to form a contract with him. She agrees, asking to see his world, and he accepts as the scene shifts from hell back to snowy reality. Now outside in the snow, she runs ahead in delight, calling his world beautiful. Twirling in the snow, she declares that she truly likes him. As she and the boy walk together, onlookers notice them and react in alarm. The cardinal and his knights stare at the pair in fear, questioning who they are. The girl privately marvels that this little brat managed to obtain the Book of Black Goat. Dale greets Cardinal Nikolai politely and asks why he came all the way here. The cardinal recalls the contract clause that events in hell incur no responsibility on the signers and reacts with shock as he realizes its implication. Dale deduces aloud that the cardinal felt uneasy and that the Hayas alone did not satisfy him. Spreading his arms, Dale says they may have come to eliminate him, but reminds them that this realm is darkness. He points out that the cardinal, a mage of light, chose the worst place to intrude, while the nervous cardinal insists it is a misunderstanding. The horned girl, eyes glowing, eagerly asks Dale if she may devour the intruders. Dale casually grants permission, joking that he will not be responsible if she gets a stomachache, and she agrees enthusiastically. The cardinal, clutching his holy symbol, prepares a powerful rite, saying it has been long since he last had such a feast. He begins a solemn invocation in the name of the Trinity. A radiant angelic figure manifests, as he implores for pity and mercy upon them. The priests and holy knights pray together, asking the goddess for mercy and kindness. As winged knights shine with holy light, the cardinal commands them to destroy the servant of Satan, meaning Dale. Seeing their power, Dale admits to himself that this fight will be difficult. The angelic knights launch into the air and charge straight toward Dale and the girl. In midair and on the ground, they clash fiercely with Dale, who narrowly evades their sword strikes. Dodging a sweeping holy blade, Dale begins gathering dark power around his hand. He unleashes the spell Shadow Bullet, sending massive spikes of darkness up toward the attacking angels. The knights evade the attack, and both Dale and the cardinal acknowledge how well the angels dodged. Confident, the cardinal argues that no matter how gifted Dale is, as a mere third circle mage he cannot draw out the Book of Black Goat's full power. The angelic apparition continues praising the Lord as holy light intensifies around the priests and knights. The divine chorus hurts Dale and especially the grimoire girl, who clutches her head in pain. Overwhelmed by the incessant holy chanting, she screams at the voices to shut up. Enraged, she transforms into a monstrous form and erupts dark power against the surrounding angels. The angels slice off several of her shadowy tentacles and exclaim that they have severed them. One angel moves in to deliver judgment on the now wounded girl. As he strikes, he is suddenly caught off guard by corrupting darkness enveloping him. The girl's tentacles impale and corrupt multiple angels, making them cry out in agony. The cardinal shouts concern to the injured knights, who moan in pain. Horrified by what he sees, he stammers a praise phrase as a reflex. The corrupted angels and knights are driven mad, compulsively chanting praise while being consumed by purple corruption. The same maddening chant echoes in the cardinal's mind as he wonders in terror what is happening. One knight, half petrified and rotting, twitches and repeats the broken praise as his body disintegrates. The girl, wreathed in tentacles, stands over the writhing corrupted knights as their screams fill the air. A knight, his face liquefying, darkly remarks that it has been a long time since he smelled this familiar scent of evil. The girl, delighted, says that since she waited so long for this, she will savor her meal slowly. Her tentacles gruesomely crush and devour the knight's body, leaving gore on the ground. Narration names her an evil god that eats angels, and states that the 11-year-old who summoned her is anything but ordinary, as the cardinal recoils in dread. It further explains that Dale cannot be described merely as a ducal prodigy or imperial genius. He is labeled instead as a child of the devil, shown smiling calmly. Dale repeats the contract's clause to the collapsed cardinal, reminding him that neither party bears responsibility for what occurred. He coldly notes that those were the cardinal's own words, while Nikolai begs desperately to live. Dale asks if the man truly wishes to live. He then demands to know what the cardinal can offer in exchange for his life, leaving the man stammering. Panicking, Nikolai offers wealth, church rank, and even command over church forces. He pleads for Dale to name any price, promising to give everything he possesses. Dale, pleased, asks exactly what he wants in return, showing interest in such complete surrender. The terrified cardinal raises his hand as if to swear, fearing what will be demanded. Dale answers that he wants literally everything the cardinal possesses, leaving the man protesting weakly. Realizing he has no choice, the cardinal prepares to rewrite their Hayes-bound contract of absolute obedience. Narration states that from that point, Nikolai had no way to overturn the situation anymore. Afterward, the grimoire girl cheerfully calls Dale Mr. Handsome. She says playing with him was very fun. She confesses that she loves his world and declares she will wait for him there. She smiles meaningfully, clearly pleased by their interaction. Manifesting her tentacles again, she asks if Dale is not afraid of her. He answers that he is not, and she accepts that response without surprise. Internally, Dale decides that she is far too dangerous to summon lightly. He concludes that since he cannot yet fully control her power, he will reserve her as a final trump card. Side by side with her tentacles coiled around him, he confirms they can play like this again someday. She happily agrees that they will surely meet again and expresses relief. Dale promises that they will indeed play together again, which satisfies her. Back alone in the library, Dale hears her parting voice saying she looks forward to seeing him again. Narration states that with this, the disturbance in hell finally ended. It adds that Dale, eldest son of House Saxon, received absolution of his sins officially through Cardinal Nikolai. As a grand act of atonement and reconciliation between the ducal house and church, a unique holy ceremony is performed, and Dale returns home openly as himself. Because of this new status, no one dares obstruct the sword or ambitions of the black young master. Several months later, a blonde girl stands training with a massive purple greatsword. Her instructor signals the start of the session, and she agrees enthusiastically. She channels dark aura into the greatsword while her armored teacher watches. Surrounded by swirling aura, she concentrates deeply, stabilizing the power. She then swings the empowered greatsword with impressive force. The teacher ends the test, while onlookers cheer at her performance. He praises her as incredible for having already perfected the aura blade at such a young age. Addressing her formally as Charlotte of House Orhart, he presents her to an observing Dale. Dale steps forward and ceremoniously asks her, for the sake of Lord, honor, and duty, to answer a pledge. He then asks Charlotte if she will swear loyalty as his knight. In response, she plunges the sword into the ground before her, preparing to take the oath. Kneeling behind the sword, she solemnly declares her vow. She raises the blade as part of the ritual, her face hidden behind it. Dale rests the sword on her shoulder and asks if she swears to protect the weak and punish evil without being ruled by selfish desire. After she agrees, he officially appoints Dame Charlotte as his knight in the name of Saxon. Charlotte smiles softly, accepting her new role. Dale and Charlotte walk side by side, beginning their journey as lord and knight. Dale asks if she is sure about this path, and she affirms that she is. She says she likes the heavy Saxon greatsword because it is the weapon that shaped the person Dale has become. Narration notes she chose the house's greatsword over a lighter rapier entirely of her own will. Dale reflects that adjusting to such a weapon must have been hard and realizes he underestimated Charlotte's talent. He then informs her that intelligence reports a massive orc warband gathering beyond the Demon King's old territory. Dale explains that the orc war boss is leading them himself, that his father will mobilize the north, and that Dale will join the campaign. He tells Charlotte he wants her fighting at his side in that coming battle, leaving her momentarily stunned. He reiterates the invitation, asking her to accompany him as his knight. After a pause, she firmly agrees. Charlotte vows to become the sword that protects her lord. Dale answers that his own blade will be wielded solely for her sake in return. Meanwhile, Duke Noir announces to his council that scouts have detected a large orc war band moving south from the Dark Land beyond the frontier. Another noble wonders if this signals a new wave of barbarian invasions. One advisor answers that such a scenario is indeed very likely. Narration recounts that after the hero Han Sung helped slay the Demon King, people expected peace, but in truth many demon races simply migrated south, later remembered as the barbarian invasions. Orders are then issued to summon all northern lords, the Noir Magic Tower, and subordinate knightly orders. The Duke states that the coming battlefield will be larger than anything seen before. Turning to his son, he calls Dale's name. He tells Dale it is time to teach him how to apply necromancy in real warfare. Later that day in Duke Noir's underground workshop, Dale arrives for the lesson. Narration says this is his first battlefield necromancy lesson, as his father asks Dale to consider the difference between a death knight and a simple undead soldier. The Duke answers that it is superficially like the difference between a knight and a foot soldier. Dale then thoughtfully asks what actually separates a knight from a common soldier. His father says combat strength is part of it but not the whole answer. He explains that high combat power alone does not make someone a knight, prompting Dale to guess whether aura blade mastery is the key. The Duke reveals a fallen armored warrior as part of the demonstration, which surprises Dale. He confirms the corpse is a knight who died recently in the Black and White Turning Point battle. The Duke explains this aura knight swore, even after death, to devote his body to House Saxon. He then performs a necromantic ritual, surrounding the corpse with dark flames to raise it. As the corpse stirs, he explains that the stronger the aura knight was in life, the stronger the resulting death knight. A towering death knight fully manifests, and the Duke emphasizes the great power such undead can have. He tells Dale he must always remember that these beings are proud knights in both life and death. Satisfied with Dale's understanding, he tells his son to follow, hinting at something else to show him. Dale, somewhat tense, agrees and says he is ready to see it. They continue descending deep underground together. The two walk down a long stone stairway into ever deeper darkness. Dale wonders internally just how far they are going down. The Duke asks if Dale knows of House Saxon's founder, the immortal Duke Frederick. Remembering the book of Black Goat inside him, Dale thinks anxiously of Frederick and his grimoire. Dale outwardly replies that he only knows what books and his father's stories say, describing Frederick as a truth-obsessed monster. The Duke adds that Frederick even sacrificed his own daughter in pursuit of that truth. He tells Dale that what he is about to reveal is the legacy Frederick pursued and the dark debt House Saxon still bears. Stopping before a glowing purple portal, he explains that only direct Saxon bloodline members can pass through this barrier. Dale and Duke Noir react in shock to something before them. They see a large, eerily silent army of armored soldiers, and Dale wonders what it is. Dale recounts how the immortal Duke discovered a method to animate corpses without constant mana, leading each Saxon head to follow. Noir explains that the Saxon heads used that method to build an undead army named the Death Order. Dale declares that he, too, inherits the immortal Duke's will. Overwhelmed, Dale thinks that he has finally understood everything. Noir's past words echo, praising Dale's resolve and urging him never to lose it. Dale realizes Saxon's isolation and Noir's strict morality existed to safeguard the Death Order. His first clear thought about this revelation is revulsion at the hypocrisy surrounding such darkness. Noir calls this hidden power their shared darkness but also their shield that protects the family. Noir asks Dale if he is ready to bear this sin. Dale grips his undead heart, letting dark mana surge through it. He answers that he has been prepared from the beginning. Declaring himself Dale of House Saxon, he accepts the corrupt power, admitting he is a hypocrite gathering strength for revenge. Later, Dale strains to perform a necromantic gesture. He successfully channels dark energy to control a Death Order knight under Noir's supervision. The dark power links his hand to the knight's sword and armor. The knight fully awakens under Dale's command, eyes dark and weapon ready. Multiple undead knights demonstrate swift, coordinated sword drills at Dale's direction. Noir notes that Dale's mana is astonishingly refined, and Dale modestly credits his teacher. Noir explains he still cannot maintain a Death Knight without direct mana unlike the Death Order. Noir says instead he will teach Dale how to apply necromancy in real battles. He urges Dale to train hard for the coming war. Noir then opens a portal and departs with Dale deeper into their dark training grounds. In a lab, gargoyle-like corpses rise as new undead test targets. One of the gargoyles lunges aggressively at the kneeling Death Knight. The creature charges, bearing its fangs toward the impassive knight. Dale's controlled knight cleaves through the attacking gargoyles with powerful swings. Dale and Noir watch as the knight finishes the monsters with heavy strikes. Noir is astonished, realizing Death Knights can vary greatly in quality. Noir reflects that necromancers usually lack sword skill, yet Dale's control surpasses even living elite knights. Elsewhere, Cephia, an elven mage, marvels at Dale's incredible talent and wonders what kind of gift he holds. Training in the snow, Dale uses water magic to shatter an ice target while Cephia observes. Feeling her heart stir, Cephia suddenly realizes she has come to like her young student. She recalls when Dale acted like an innocent child, yet she sensed a deeper side through the world he showed her. She remembers feeling the chill, darkness, and longing in him, interpreting it as a man's genuine yearning for affection. Back in the present, Dale effortlessly disperses another attack with water magic beside Cephia. Cephia praises the growth of his water control, and Dale says he wants to become a son his father can be proud of. She calls that resolve wonderful, but he remains quietly troubled. Noticing his worry, Cephia asks if something has happened. Dale hesitantly addresses her as teacher, preparing to confess. He asks if she could still like him after seeing his ugly side. He admits he fears she will be disappointed if he accepts his house's dark legacy. Cephia gently takes his face in her hands, surprising him. She cups his cheeks, making him look up at her. Blushing, she calls to him softly. Cephia explains that elves live long lives and she will look the same even when he grows into a man. She adds that she will likely care for him just as much then, wondering why she worries so deeply about him. She remembers hearing of the Black Young Master's brutal victory and infamous reputation spreading through the Empire. Despite others praising Dale, she felt uneasy instead of happy. She thinks of him being dubbed the God of Massacre, and wishes he would not walk a path of slaughter. Cephia resolves to stay by Dale's side until he truly understands his own feelings. She adds that when that time comes she won't remain just his teacher. She vows that then she will stand before him simply as a woman. She concludes by assuring him he is not alone. Embarrassed, Cephia clears her throat while Dale stands stunned. Regaining composure, she cheerfully suggests they resume their lesson. Overcome, Dale suddenly hugs her tightly. Shocked then moved, Cephia thanks him. Dale confesses that he really likes her and calls her by name, Cephia. She smiles and asks him to wait for her in the future. Narration notes that in her warmth, Dale forgot his cold loneliness and formed an unforgettable childhood promise. Shortly afterward, banners and northern troops assemble for a major campaign. The northern lords gather at the Saxon dukedom to confront barbarian invasions. Lord Wilhelm of Gale loudly presents himself before the duke. He formally reports the forces he has brought, pledging them to Duke Noir. Another lord announces himself as Valderberg of Ken while narration explains all minor lords assembled under Saxon's command. Wilhelm proudly introduces his eldest son Beth, among many ambitious nobles seeking Noir's favor. Narration observes that every lord repeats vows of loyalty while flaunting their children's achievements. Despite the looming war, nobles still socialize to build alliances and prestige. Everyone knows impressing the black young master is crucial, so they crowd Dale with greetings. Beth enthusiastically introduces himself as Gale's eldest son and says he wants to fight alongside Dale, whom Dale politely deems dependable. Noble ladies flock to Dale, praising him as more gallant than rumors describe. One girl gushes over how unexpectedly wonderful he is, while Dale inwardly finds such attention exhausting politics. A purple-haired knight approaches and respectfully calls out to young Master Dale. Introducing himself as Yones, he says he has heard of Dale's prowess and wants to witness it personally. His elder scolds him for speaking so boldly to Dale in public. Dale stops the elder with a firm hand, preventing further reprimand. Dale confirms Yones is Baron Kenneth's second son. Dale acknowledges this and repeats that Yones wishes to see his strength firsthand. He clarifies that Yones essentially wants to test his ability. Narration lists Dale's fearsome titles and victories, emphasizing his reputation as the Empire's strongest prodigy. Yones insists he never doubted Dale's strength. He simply wanted to see the legendary prodigy before him. He adds he only wants Dale to teach him a few moves with the sword, shocking his superior. Others call Yones insolent, but Dale smiles, intrigued. Dale notes Yones commands 100 mercenaries despite being only a baron's second son. Dale recounts that Yones built his mercenary band alone during his nightly pilgrimage, which Dale finds interesting. Dale reasons that as a second son Yones cannot inherit land, so raising a mercenary unit is his risky way to prove himself. Seeing potential value in such a man, Dale cheerfully accepts the duel challenge. The hall is cleared and Dale and Yones face each other for the formal duel. Narration says the duel is arranged on the spot, serving to establish hierarchy among the northern forces, which Duke Noir allows. Noir sees no reason to stop it as Yones draws his sword. Dale reminds Yones that his own weapon is not an ordinary blade. Yones acknowledges this and mentions Dale's famous Sword of Shadow. Yones urges Dale to use his aura so they can fight seriously. Dale coolly tells him to come at full strength. He then orders Yones, as the superior, to obey and fight with all his power. Yones releases an aura storm that fills the hall in preparation. Dale assesses that Yones has not yet reached true aura blade level. Dale still admires how cleanly Yones controls his aura. Dale decides to respond in kind, letting shadow power rise around him. Yones is startled by the emerging mass of darkness near Dale. Observers murmur that this is the Black Young Master's ominous sword. Yones braces himself, and tells Dale to attack as much as he wants. He then charges, aura blades swinging straight for Dale. Their blades clash violently in the center of the hall. Dale calmly raises his hand, readying another technique. Yones bears down with a heavy overhead strike. The two exchange a powerful aura-infused blow, Dale's black blade locking with Yones. As they trade strikes, Yones thinks Dale was born with every advantage. Yones vows internally to prove that someone with nothing can defeat someone who has it all. He lunges again, determined to show that resolve through the duel. The two continue exchanging rapid blows amid swirling shadows. Yones is shocked as Dale repeatedly slips through his attacks. Seeing what he thinks is an opening, Yones commits to a full-strength strike. He shouts and sends a huge aura slash toward Dale. The blast tears across the hall, but Dale counters it head-on. Yones is stunned as Dale's shadow power overcomes his attack. Dale's counterblow slams Yones back, dominating the exchange. The two face off again as shadows curl around Dale's feet. Dale sends shadow spikes erupting from the ground toward Yones. Yones is driven back and nearly skewered by the erupting shadows. Dale calmly manipulates numerous shadow blades around them. He himself leaps among the shadows, pressing Yones from above. Yones can barely defend against the barrage of shifting shadow strikes. He charges again while Dale watches, analyzing his movements. Dale judges Yones' form solid and worthy of a mercenary captain, seeing him as a fitting opponent to enhance his own name. Yones, refusing to back down, invites Dale to attack while he stands his ground. Yones roars that Dale will regret underestimating him and raises his sword high. The next clash again results in Dale's dark blade overpowering Yones' weapon. Spectators watch in awe as Dale steadily drives Yones back. Nobles comment that the Saxon heir's bearing is exceptional. Others marvel that Dale is this skilled at only 11 years old. Yones prepares another desperate assault, challenging Dale to dodge it. Dale's shadows intercept and slam Yones, making him cry out. Yones realizes Dale is overwhelming him partly to demonstrate his skill to the Northern Lords rather than to him personally. He refuses to accept being toyed with and pushes himself to move even faster. He unleashes a wild flurry of aura slashes against Dale. Narration reveals Yones struggles to accept that Dale's talent, surpassing all others, embodies the world's unfairness. It adds that this made him feel any further struggle might be pointless. At last their swords meet in a decisive exchange that shatters Yones' resistance. Yones drops to one knee, planting his sword in the ground. He bitterly admits he has no idea how to ever surpass Dale. Yones formally concedes defeat before the Black Young Master. Dale, feeling his cursed heart throb, wonders if his power stems from the Book of the Black Goat. He reflects that the duel felt slow to him and that he won easily even against a foe using full aura. He senses his shadow cloak sword now functions like an extension of his body, as if he wields living shadow tentacles. Dale concludes this battle with Yones has sharpened his control and decides to use Yones as an example. He points and invokes his new technique, Shadow Bullet. Shards of condensed darkness explode around Yones as Dale demonstrates this fearsome finishing move. A purple-haired knight collapses to one knee in pain, bracing himself on his sword. Gasping and furious, the knight demands if anyone else dares to challenge him as the black-haired boy watches. Before the assembled soldiers and nobles, the knight kneels to the boy and taunts anyone with courage to doubt his name and face him. The black-haired boy slams his sword into the ground, startling those nearby. Another armored man kneels and bows his head to the boy, accepting his dominance. The boy stands proudly as the knights around him loudly swear their loyalty to him as their young master. Watching this, the boy remembers a saying his father often repeated. He recalls his father's belief that instilling fear is the surest way to secure loyalty. Realizing the scene proves it true. Later during the celebration, nobles drink together and chat merrily. Afterward, the purple-haired captain leaves the mansion with comrades, one calling out to him. Drinking from a bottle, the captain is told he looks troubled in this ruthless world. He confesses bitterly that no matter how hard he trains he cannot reach the young master's level, so of course he is upset. Clutching the bottle, he scoffs at the idea that status is not fixed at birth and can change through hard work. Thinking of the black young master, he considers such talk absurd, feeling the boy is an overwhelming obstacle in his path. Growing angrier as he broods, he decides to drown his frustration in more alcohol with his friend. Time passes, and he and his mercenary comrades relax around a campfire in the snowy wilderness, laughing and drinking. Drunk, the captain mockingly describes how noblewomen fawned over the 11-year-old young master, asking what is so special about him. He ridicules married noblewomen for debasing themselves to catch the boy's attention and laughs at the notion of noble dignity. Boasting with his men, he claims nobles are nothing special once stripped of their titles, especially on the battlefield. Smirking, he crudely questions whether the young master even knows how to handle women, and another mercenary insults the boy's manhood. The young master suddenly appears behind him, casually responding to the insult and shocking the captain. The group jumps up in alarm as the boy asks how long they have been talking like this, leaving the captain speechless. The boy calmly sits beside the dumbfounded captain, who stiffens nervously. Smiling, the boy tells him to keep pouring drinks, snapping the captain to attention as he hurriedly obeys. While the boy refills his mug, he remarks that the world must feel cursed, making the captain hastily deny it. The captain, hands shaking, says the world is simply built on unfairness where people cannot decide anything for themselves. The boy answers that birth, talent, and environment are not choices either, asking if there is anything people truly select by will, and the captain frantically agrees. The boy gently pats his shoulder as he pours, softening the captain's expression. He tells the captain not to blame himself, explaining that in this world no one can easily change their fate. The captain listens wide-eyed as the boy adds that fate is not something people can reshape by hand. Overwhelmed, the captain suddenly bursts into loud, almost hysterical laughter while the boy watches. Calming down, the captain admits the boy is right, concluding that his struggles never gave him a real chance. The boy formally addresses him as Sir Yones of House Kenneth, and says he genuinely likes him. Smiling brightly, the boy asks if he and his mercenary band would. He finishes by inviting them to wield their swords for House Saxon under his command, leaving Yones stunned. Yones can only stammer in disbelief at the unexpected offer. Clarifying, the boy says he wants Yones to serve under House Saxon and that his knights will train Yones' men for the coming war. He promises instruction from basic sword handling up to aura cultivation, making Yones incredulous that the famed Night Crow Order would really train them. Yones reflects that the noble who taught him about the world's unfairness is now the one granting him a chance no one else would, and he asks why. The boy answers simply that he needs people on his side. He adds that Yones' presence here is just how the world happened to work, echoing Yones' earlier fatalism. Yones thinks that though the world is unjust, being with this young master makes that unfairness feel as if it disappears. Soon after, time passes and the Saxon ducal estate prepares for war. In a strategy meeting at Duke Saxon's castle, the Duke orders his advisors to report the current situation. They explain that mountains between the Demon King's lands and Saxon are lined with fortresses where knights fiercely hold the defensive line. A report follows that the ranger garrison known as the Winter Wardens and Northern Lords have begun withdrawing from the 9th Mountain Fortress. The Duke hears that these forces burn unmovable supplies before retreating and deems the plan on track. The strategy is described as a delaying defense to exhaust the enemy before they reach the Upper Saxon River. An advisor summarizes that once the orcs are worn down at the river, the field army will move to block and annihilate them. The Duke therefore commands that all lords be informed to ready their armies to march. After the council, the Duke calls Dale aside, saying he has additional orders for him. He informs Dale that the mobile strike force made from the Night Crow Knights will be placed entirely under Dale's command. The Duke states that when major battles erupt on both fronts, Dale alone will command this mobile force. He further announces that Cephia has chosen to accompany Dale as his support. Dale questions whether this violates the Blue Tower's neutrality, but the Duke answers that Cephia is already Saxon's chief advisor. The Duke adds that combating the barbarians is more than a simple worldly quarrel, while Dale privately wonders why Cephia is personally going to war. When Dale asks if it is truly Cephia's decision, the Duke confirms firmly that it is. He reminds Dale that his earlier victory proved his worth, and says he expects him to succeed again in this campaign. Dale accepts his father's orders but says he has one more request to make. The Duke tells him to speak. Dale's request is that the renowned young phantom swordsman be assigned to serve in his unit. The blonde knight begins putting on a helm, preparing to answer the summons. Fully armored, the knight stands ready beneath the snowy mountains. Dale looks at the armored figure and comments on how reliable they seem. The knight proudly replies that of course they are dependable, since they will safeguard the famous black young master. Dale agrees, joking that now the knight looks like a true warrior instead of a little girl. Seeing the image of a powerful dark knight behind him, Dale recalls something grim from his past. He then turns to the knight and suggests they make a promise, confusing her. Dale asks her not to die in the coming battle, making her flustered and ask what he just said. He clarifies that while risking one's life may be considered a knight's duty, he does not see it that way. When she hesitantly asks what a knight's real duty is, he prepares to explain. Dale answers that a knight's true duty is never to betray their lord's trust. Smiling, he adds that he personally does not want her to die. He tells her this battlefield is not the place where she is destined to die, leaving her stunned and blushing. Dale promises to engrave her words in his heart. Sometime later, preparations complete, armored feet march as events move forward again. As the orc horde advances south, Duke Saxon leads the main army out to meet them. Meanwhile Dale, with Bale, Guard Knight Charlotte, and Cephia, leads the mobile Night Crow's strike force toward the upper Saxon River ahead of the main host. Riding at the head of his column, Dale surveys the terrain. The narration notes that from this point Cephia serves not just as Dale's teacher but as his comrade. At early dawn, the river near the canyon roars under the moonlight. At the upper Saxon River camp, Dale's mobile force waits intense by the water. Cephia walks alone through the quiet camp, cloaked and thoughtful. Dale steps out and calls to her by name. She turns in surprise, addressing him as Dale. She asks why he is still awake and whether he is unable to sleep, while he calls softly to her. Dale then asks why she agreed to his father's proposal to accompany the army. She replies that she is simply following what she believes to be her life's calling. Dale is taken aback as she reminds him that she promised to remain by his side. Smiling faintly, Dale thanks her. Suddenly Cephia senses a disturbance in the air and wonders what it could be as Dale looks up. Realizing the enemy is coming, Dale and Cephia dash off while he orders the mobile strike force to prepare for battle and move to the river crossing at once. At the riverbank, Dale sees orcs already beginning to cross and is shocked. He curses that the orcs have taken the initiative, attacking before he could launch his planned strike. Bale rushes up calling to Lord Dale. Dale greets Sir Bale as the knight arrives, breathing hard. Bale urges Dale to give the command. Dale assesses that thousands of orcs are forcing a dangerous crossing, meaning their situation must be desperate. He orders Bale to lead 4 cavalry battalions to attack immediately, and destroy the orc vanguard before it can form a bridgehead. Dale adds that he will take the remaining 2 battalions to hit the enemy from behind, and Bale pledges to obey. At the river, rangers shout that the orcs are charging in as they ready their bows. Bale commands the archers not to let any orc reach dry land and to take aim. At his order to fire, volleys of arrows tear into the orcs, dropping many in the water. Meanwhile, heavy cavalry rides hard along the river trail toward the embattled crossing. Dale races at their head, silently urging Bale to hold on. As his group gallops nearer, hidden assassins observe their approach from behind rocks. The hooded figures ready themselves in the shadows, eyes glowing red. Elsewhere along the bank, more archers draw their bows as they are told again to take aim. Another volley of arrows rains down from the cliff onto the orcs below. The barrage continues while orc riders on wolves push forward under deadly fire. A wolf splashes through the river, signaling a swift assault. One orc rider suddenly leaps high atop his wolf in a powerful charge toward the defenders. The beast slams into a ranger, mauling him savagely. As other riders close in, men scream for help amid the chaos. Orc wolf riders roar triumphantly as they drive the defenders back toward the bridge. The defenders vow not to let the orcs advance past the bridge and rally to push them back. Dale's cavalry and Cephia's group finally arrive behind the orc force, closing the trap. Dale reasons that the exhausted orcs likely lack rear support, so he will exploit that weakness. He outlines his plan to move upstream through a shallow ford while Bale holds the bridge, allowing them to strike the exposed orc rear. Bale, still fighting at the front, is urged again to endure a little longer. Amid the melee, one of Bale's comrades is killed right beside him. A massive orc champion on a dire wolf looms before the defenders, threatening to crush the line. At that moment Dale signals that it is time and orders his men to strike the enemy's rear. Explosions rock the bridge behind the orcs, throwing them into confusion. Dale charges in on horseback with Cephia and his knights, shouting Bale's name as they slam into the orc rear. Bale responds by ordering the line to advance, and the troops acknowledge the young master's command. Ringing the battle bell, Bale encourages the soldiers, saying the orcs here are isolated and to tighten their encirclement with Dale's cavalry. He orders the men to show no mercy, and Saxon forces brutally cut down the surrounded orcs. Dale rides at the forefront, channeling dark power around himself and his steed. Unleashing his technique called Shadow Bullet, he fires waves of purple energy through the orc ranks, blasting them aside as the battle turns decisively in Saxon's favor. The young master confidently takes command, riding at the head of the force. As he rides, a huge orc suddenly attacks him from behind. A black-armored knight dashes in beside the young master to intercept the threat. The knight slashes upward and fatally cuts down the attacking orc. The young master reassures his knightly companion to leave the situation to him. Their hooded mage companion raises a glowing barrier spell to defend them. The mage warns Dale that if they delay any longer, the orc unit will change formation and encircle them, so they must withdraw first. Another knight cuts down an enemy as the unit begins to pull back. Orc riders and their wolves surge forward while the Saxon knights start a fighting retreat across a bridge. A knight shouts that the orc riders are turning back toward them. Dale orders a general retreat. The company flees on horseback while the orc riders give rapid chase. Dale thinks that their mission objective is already met, so they need not win decisively every time. He plans to lure the pursuers far from their reinforcements, and then annihilate them. After riding some distance and believing it's efficient, Dale notices something ahead. A group of orcs on wolves, accompanied by a cloaked rider, bears down on them from the front. The mysterious cloaked rider notices their horse and pauses. The rider begins conjuring intense flames in his hands. Their mage senses something alarming and turns back while riding. She yells for Dale to watch out, startling him. She immediately pours power into her horse, preparing a major spell. An immense wave of icy magic erupts from her, forming a huge barrier ahead. The pyromancer counters by hurling his gathered flames at the rising ice wall. Cloaked in firelight, he rides forward, unleashing the burning attack. A massive fireball roars toward the ice barrier and the Saxon cavalry. The fire and ice spells collide in a blinding explosion. The result is a towering frozen wall with fire trapped inside its core. The explosion of elements blasts outward, incinerating nearby foes. Dale and his knights stare at the terrifying flame, wondering what kind of fire it is. Dale notices the flames left no corpses or bones and begins to suspect who these enemies are. He orders his companions to spread out to avoid being wiped out at once. A knight reports that the enemy's special mage class, the Purifier, has entered the field and identifies them as pyromancers. The narration explains that purifiers are battle mages of the Red Magic Tower trained solely to burn the Empire's enemies and enforce the Age's ruthless spirit. Dale and his teacher realize that a Red Magic Tower mage appeared specifically to target her. She instructs the knights to keep moving and never bunch up, increasing their survival chances. Dale urges his horse forward, committing to the dangerous engagement. He judges the current situation, with tower mages and orc riders together, as the worst scenario. He recalls that forming ranks and charging is suicidal against the overwhelming firepower of tower mages. At the same time, he knows scattering too much would allow the orc riders to pin them down. Realizing he has no better option, he resolves to use a special power taught by a mysterious woman. His teacher suddenly orders Dale to dismount. Dale looks over, surprised as she rides beside him. She says she wants to fulfill her responsibility as his teacher. Dale steels himself in response to her resolve. He halts his horse abruptly, signaling a change in plan. Facing his worried knights, he announces that they must obey his standing orders while he and his teacher remain behind. He directs Charlotte to ride back and inform his father about their dire situation. When Charlotte protests that her duty is to protect him, he insists this is an order from her lord. Fighting back tears, Charlotte accepts and is told to ride without relaxing her grip on the reins. Dale smiles gently and agrees to her plea. The cavalry departs at full gallop, leaving Dale and his teacher behind. Dale remarks wryly that since their escorts are gone, they could not run even if they wanted to. When his teacher asks if he had planned to run, he answers honestly that he had not. He adds that he could never abandon his teacher, even as the orc riders close in from behind. Again he states that escape is no longer an option for the two of them. She verifies that he truly did not intend to flee, and he confirms this. Hearing his loyalty, she smiles and asks how she could ever be left behind. She acknowledges his resolve and begins preparing serious magic. Thanking Dale, she summons powerful ice mana encircling them both. One of the pursuing wolves' paws slams into the ground as the riders charge closer. She releases a swirling ice blast that surges toward the charging wolf riders. Chanting to crystalline frost, she compresses blinding cold energy in her hand. She commands the frost to freeze everything, unleashing a catastrophic ice storm. The spell instantly encases the wolves and nearby ground in solid ice. The enemy pyromancers curse as they realize she has frozen the entire area around them. She coldly reminds them that they are facing the Blue Tower's Elder, a sixth circle mage, and says they should have been prepared for this level of power. She questions their motive, demanding to know why the Red Magic Tower is working with barbarians. One purifier answers that they see Dale and his allies only as targets to be incinerated. The purifiers invoke their creed and launch another gigantic fire assault. Dale's teacher readies herself calmly to counter the new spell. She casts the Dispel spell Blue Dissonance, which clashes with and dismantles the incoming flames. The firestorm dissipates, leaving her standing firm with ice energy drifting around her. Dale shouts to the Knights of Saxon that the enemy attacks have been neutralized. He orders the cavalry to raise their spears and drive forward. Empowered by his command, all Saxon troops charge in for a decisive assault. The knights carve through the orc forces, beheading one with a single slash. A brutal melee erupts as knights and orcs clash across the battlefield. Elsewhere, Duke Saxon briefs young mages that the conflict they are entering is no simple battle. He warns that the coming battlefield is an abyss of blood, fear, chaos, and despair. Another instructor tells the trainees not to fixate on victory or defeat but to accept chaos and death as sustenance. The Duke urges them to carry fear without yielding to it, saying every death they witness will temper who they become. He commands the Saxon mages to go, imprint today's deaths in their memories, and turn that into strength for tomorrow. The Duke calls for his aide Eris, who answers respectfully. He orders that the time has come to send the children to the river crossing point, and Eris agrees. Dame Charlotte arrives in a panic before the Duke, calling out to Duke Saxon. She reports breathlessly that the young master is in grave danger. The Duke's cavalry immediately races toward the battlefield. Charlotte leads the armored knights in a renewed, buff-enhanced charge. One purifier prepares another deadly flame spell to stop them. He hurls a massive fireball straight at the charging cavalry. Dale and his teacher jointly throw up an ice barrier and refuse to let the attack pass. Their magic forms another towering ice wall that blocks both flames and charging riders. Dale notes that the wall blocks his own cavalry as well, but judges that preventing casualties is more important. He decides it is time to strike back using the shattered ice to create countless deadly spikes. Dale unleashes his spell Shard Magnum, sending a storm of ice projectiles at the purifiers. The icy barrage streaks through the air toward the enemy line. The purifiers combine their flames into a shield that melts or deflects most of the ice. Dale clicks his tongue in frustration when the attack fails to break through. He realizes the enemy's flame armor is more than protection and suspects it allowed them to survive Cephia's earlier attack. The knight's spear thrusts reach the pyromancers as Dale declares that their flames will end here. A purifier spreads his burning arms, preparing a powerful counter. His flames erupt outward, forcing the charging knights back in shock. Other purifiers begin closing in on Lady Cephia with fireballs ready. Dale leaps in front of his teacher, activating dark power and forming protective shadow crystals. Using the spell Shadow Bullet, he propels himself forward and pierces a purifier with dark projectiles. Standing over the fallen enemy, he demands to know their true objective. The wounded purifier asks why Dale thinks he was specifically targeted. The fanatic declares that soon the entire world will burn. With half his face engulfed in fire, he raves that from that burning world someone new will rise from the ashes. Dale realizes in horror what the blazing armor is actually meant to do. The narration explains that the flame armor's true purpose is self-destruction magic that incinerates the wearer's own body. As the burning mage prepares to detonate, Cephia shouts for Dale to flee and he urges his teacher to escape. The purifier laughs that it is already too late. Crying farewell, he triggers a catastrophic explosion that engulfs Dale and Cephia. The self-destruction detonates like a huge bomb, obliterating the surrounding area. When the flames settle, a vast crater and raging fires mark the blast zone. Dale and Cephia lie injured amid the devastation, but they are still alive. Dale checks Cephia and is relieved to see she is safe. He reflects that her ice armor shielded him from a fatal wound, though she was swallowed by the blast while trying to protect him. He also realizes with anguish that even the Night Crone Knight Order was annihilated in the explosion. Surviving purifiers notice the young master is still alive and move in to claim his life. Empowered by stolen flames, Dale surges forward in fury, determined to kill his attacker. His flaming charge slams into the ground as he closes the distance. He follows through with a powerful dark-imbued sword strike that tears the enemy apart. The mortally wounded purifier can only gasp in shock. Dale finishes him off in a fiery explosion as his sword cleaves through. Breathing hard, Dale notes grimly that this makes his second purifier kill. Facing the last surviving mage, Dale recalls the torturous experiments he once endured and how he has waited for this day without rest.